Outpost 13, commencing transmission 5. Hello, people of the past. We've had some good news to bring to you. Thanks to the salvaged parts Fred and I retrieved, Mike was able to repair Outpost 13's Ansible device. Immediately upon its repair, we intercepted the strange signal that seemed to be emanating from the Proxima Centauri system that I noticed back at McMurdo. It was indeed WOTW transmitting its top 20 countdown of hit songs from the year 2350. I was always a fan of their number 12, Extraterrestrial Booty Clappers from Rigel 4. Followed by Mike and I's favorite music-themed podcast, the Songwriter's Couch. After listening to the latest episode, we were able to get into contact with the hosts. Of course, following Regulation 42, Article 426, Subsection 94 of Outpost 13's Charter, which states, under the conditions of the extinction of the human race, if an outpost manages to contact survivors from another outpost or otherwise, a subsequent viewing of a selection from the media archives must be viewed without delay by all in said parties, and a podcast episode recorded and transmitted back in time, in which said parties discuss the media referred to above. Unfortunately, while working on the station's Ansible, Mike injured his finger when it accidentally passed through the accelerator's matrix particle beam. Luckily, Outpost 13 is equipped with a highly advanced EMH, or emergency medical hologram, whom we call Ken. Ken was able to stitch up Mike's finger, and as a thank you, we uploaded today's film selection into his neural net so that he could join us in our discussion. Therefore, we now proceed in our duty under Article 42 to discuss today's movie selection, 1958's The Blob. All right, welcome everybody.
Thank you.
I just want to, before I introduce everybody, let me just give a brief synopsis of the movie that we're going to talk about today. Like I said, 1958's The Blob. The synopsis would be this: a molten meteor carrying a squishy visitor crash lands at a small town in Pennsylvania for a spot of lunch, and hijinks ensue.
Hijinks.
So let's start with, I want to start by introducing everybody because we have a few more people on the show today. I guess we'll start with the Songwriter's Couch. If you guys want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So we've been lost in space here for a while, and finally coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just close the window. So we've been lost in space here for a while, but we've had some music to keep us company, and we finally got the opportunity to watch The Blob, of all things. We saw it coming past us as we were kind of crossing the stars, and apparently they made a movie about it. So I'm Patrick Joanne from the Songwriter's Couch here, also known as your brother.
That's where I know you from.
That's right. And then beside me here is one of my co-producers. I'll let her introduce herself. Yeah.
I'm Allie. I'm your sister-in-law.
Yeah, and also lost in space.
Oh, good God. Can you take him back? Yeah, room on
All
you.
right.
That's us.
And
Yeah.
thank you guys. Swinging around to our emergency medical hologram, Mr. Ken.
Thank you for stating the nature of your medical emergency. Thanks all for having me. My name is Ken. I host a couple of podcasts. We have MSV we're trying to get started. And obviously, because of my existence as an emergency medical hologram, I also host a Star Trek podcast, and which is very fitting because we're talking about creepy space stuff from the 50s, which is never really creepy.
Sounds familiar.
But,
yeah.
This is going to be a lot of fun. I can't even tell you. I really want to thank you for having me involved in this.
Of course.
Just getting to watch this movie again, and I think I was laughing more than the people in the movie theater at the movie in the end of the movie. Watching a movie and they're laughing at it.
Super meta, Ken, what you just did.
Yeah, I know, right?
I know the scene you're talking about.
It's hilarious. I'm just like, I got to see it, and I'm looking at stuff, and we'll discuss it, but a lot of stuff that I saw that you can't help it, except with a lot of these 50 movies, that just the face palming is just every 5 minutes.
Great, yeah. Starting with the song, by the way, I love the theme song.
I can't. Let's introduce
Yeah, let
everybody
me-
first, because I got a lot to say about that song.
Well, I don't have to introduce me and Mike.
They know me.
So let me start by bringing up our slideshow, and we can go through the scenes of the movie. I do want to start with the theme song, and I think before I let everyone give their opinion on it or whatever you guys want to say, I just want to read the lyrics to the song. I would actually
creeps, he crawls, he
Yeah.
rolls on the bar.
I play the song,
didn't pay
but you know
attention.
how YouTube actually is. So let me see if I can bring up. Sorry, I have it.
I could have learned it, Chris. I could have taken.
Oh,
my
that would have
guitar
been
here and
cool.
played
Yeah.
it.
So just to pimp Bill Warren's book, Keep Watching the Skies. He has the lyrics written here in his entry on the Blob. So the words are, beware of the blob, it creeps and leaps and glides and slides across the floor, right through the door and all around the walls, a splotch, a blotch, be careful of the blob.
That was that was a good rendition.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like
Yeah,
that
I would love to play the song, but you know how YouTube is. So let me see if I can make this slideshow full screen. Hang on. Is that full screen for you guys?
yeah,
Yep.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so go. Written by
And also,
Burt,
if you
Burt
just
Bacharach,
Chris,
by the way.
just
Yeah.
just
Wait,
a note,
Burt Bacharach wrote that song.
He did. Yeah.
if you push down or up on your arrow keys, it'll put you through the slides instead of having to go through
Okay. Good.
that little menu at the bottom.
Hmm.
Be easier
You know,
for
but that sounds about right though, because didn't Burt Bacharach write every song from 1953 to 1982?
He was very prolific, yeah.
And then
You-
Barry
you-
Manilow wrote the other half.
So
Bacharach
I
was
like
a handsome man.
I like the song because it sets the tone for the movie, right? It's not supposed to be like a serious movie. It's a B science fiction movie from the 50s. One of the better examples, I think, of this type of movie from that era. But it's sort of a fun little romp of a song, right?
Yeah, but I think they were trying to take it seriously. I think that was definitely meant to be like a like foreshadowing for the movie. Because I think did we watch the trailer? I don't remember if I watched like the trailer thing for it. But I feel like they were taking themselves very seriously in this movie at the time. You know what I mean? Like we can
Well,
look
back
back
then, this was fear.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was frightening.
Well,
Yeah.
It was meant to, yeah. Jack Harris, who produced the movie, wanted it to be a kind of serious movie, but the director took it in a slightly different direction. It's more campy. Audiences at the time, I guess, found some of it.
I will say, my father, who was born in 1953, but he lived in a tiny town. So even though this came out in 58, it didn't come out there until the 60s. So he was young, and he said he remembers going to see this at the theater. And,
That's awesome.
And having to walk home afterwards. And he was like, I ran because I was like,
Yeah, but you said something else too.
because they
Didn't,
had the movie theater scene in it.
but
too,
also
so
your uncle or something, right? Or his uncle owned a funeral home.
his brother-in-law, because his aunt, my aunt and uncle were significantly older than my dad because he was youngest of 5. So, and they owned a funeral home. So he didn't run to his house. He ran to his sister's house, which was above a funeral home. So he had to not only run after watching the Blob, but he had to run up the stairs of a funeral home into his sister and brother-in-law's. And he goes, I don't know how I didn't die to this day. So
It's a great memory.
Yeah, that's not going to create any kind of childhood trauma at all.
oh no, my dad's super normal.
No, why?
I love you, Dad.
And you know what also I found interesting is to speak to how they were trying to take it seriously. The movie was filmed in color. That was very expensive to do with that.
That's true. Yeah, and it was one of the things that drew people, I think, to the movie as well, is the fact that it was in color. Speaking of which, I love the colors in this movie. The greens and the blues and everything that they have. I think the color is really well done in the Blob.
Well, they
Which we'll see.
definitely made use of the film stock. That's for true.
We'll see as we go through the slides. All right, so let's get into the beginning of the movie then. So we start out on Lover's Lane with characters Steve and Jane, who are the main characters in the movie. Steve is played by Steve McQueen.
Creative take on the naming of the character.
Yeah.
Well, he was Stephen McQueen.
Actually, yeah.
Oh.
Actually, that's a good point. A lot of the actors' names in the movie are actually misspelled in the credits.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't care back then.
Stephen McQueen actually used to go by or always went by Steve McQueen, but for some reason in this movie his credit is Stephen McQueen.
Just don't call her Janie girl.
I mean, look how formal he's dressed. It makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of which, they're supposed to be, I think in the movie they're supposed to be 18. They're like at the end of high school, but
I think he was 29 in real life.
I think, yeah.
He was 29 when they filmed this.
Both of them, I think, were late 20s.
Yeah, like one of the things I always
37.
loved about, well, movies from many periods, but especially, earlier on in the 50s and the 60s, I think Steve McQueen was 28 when he made this. And he's supposed to be 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And it's just, you look at this guy and you're like, you're pushing 30. There's nobody, the only person that looks under 18 in the movie is like the 7-year-old brother.
Oh God, we'll get to him.
Well, the funny thing is they filmed, this is back in the time where Aaron Spelling probably would have been a child. And you can see later in 90210, he basically, did the same thing. You got a bunch of 30 to 35-year-olds playing high school students. So it must have rubbed off on him as well.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys noticed in this scene, his walker was like just behind the. They had to keep, bringing it to him, taking it out. This scene was funny too because it's like the classic, like 1950s, 60s, like up on Lovers Hill. Yeah, but they never actually kiss in the scene too.
But we
No,
also
they do.
At the beginning, they start the movie with them kissing.
Yeah.
Oh, are they making out in the movie?
Yeah.
But we also laughed because he tells her like that I'm gonna go get you a sandwich. It's on me. And then all I could say while we were watching it is, but you have to make it.
I'll get you a sandwich.
Time period allotting.
Hey, I'm gonna make it. It's on me, but you have to make it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely got the trappings of that time.
Oh yeah.
In this movie.
Are you wearing shoes making that sandwich for me?
Should be barefoot in that kitchen. We're all getting that kitchen.
I dig all the lighting in this too, because I don't know if you guys like do any film stuff. I know Ken, you said you kind of have something going on with some film stuff, but the lighting in this is interesting because you've got like the hair light behind, like in this scene, right? Like you've got the hair light behind and the main key light or whatever, and you've got almost no fill on it. And it's very harsh. It's almost like they took like just raw lights and just threw them all over the place to get the scene lit or whatever, but there's like almost no, I mean, I guess there's nuance to the lighting or whatever, but
this movie was made, it was kind of an amateur production. The crew that they had were not like professional Hollywood crew. They were like local people.
Oh, well, that could be
yeah. So you'll see this is a very amateurish production, but surprisingly well done for the level of experience that people had. Like the script is pretty good for what it is. The lighting, the camera shots and everything. The pacing is a bit slow. There's definitely problems with it. You could tell like the amateurish nature of, especially the director, who actually, let me give him credit here. The director was Irvin S. Yeworth, who was actually a minister who, when they were shooting this film, he had to take off every Sunday because he played organ during mass, so they weren't able to film on Sundays. And he was known mainly for recording like educational and religious movies meant for churches and things like that. So that was his experience. So the lighting might be it's just the way that they did it. But I agree with you, Pat. I love the lighting in the movie, and just give me 1 second, Ken. And the colors, like I said, are really vibrant, I think, and really makes watching the movie attractive. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's definitely true. And then especially about, when you get back to how it was written and how everything progressed, and just the idea, I mean, I didn't even realize that the director was doing, all these, kind of hokey religious films, which makes sense that some of that sort of came through in
Mhm.
the direction of this. It's like, and it's hard to tell if that was a function of the previous experience he had or just the time this was done. I mean, everything, always I mean, the first scene, they're kissing, and the first thing is the girl's embarrassed and upset and automatically thinks that he's just, kind of running game on her, and
Right.
you bring the girls here every weekend, don't you?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, that's like every 50s school movie, like everything that, we and I guess we're gonna date ourselves a little bit, but going to grade school in the 70s and 80s
Mhm.
and seeing those films that they would show you, it would be the same thing. It would be like two people kiss, and they'd be like, oh, but now you're gonna do this to me. Like it was, everything was horrible about
You're
human
gonna get
relations.
gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Reefer madness.
Here's the thing. I'm now, a horrible person just because I kissed you. It's always, it seemed to have that in it. And I'm just trying to wonder now that I know this, was it because of what he used to do, or it was just that's what they did at the time?
Mhm.
Well, it's
But
funny. He
Oh, sorry,
pulls
go
the
ahead.
whole like, oh, just trust me. No,
Yeah.
I've never
he
done
did,
it. But he's got that smirk in his.
he raises his hand
It's
up.
like that
I was
Meatloaf
like,
song.
I swear I've never brought anyone
He
else
put
up
his
here.
hand like that.
And right, and I'm like,
Stop
come on.
right
He gives
there.
he gives the Scouts honor too to the cop later on. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's the Meatloaf song I was talking about. Yeah. Before we go any further, do you love me?
Poor Steve.
So while they're sitting on Lover's Lane and talking about shooting stars, they actually see a shooting star. I like the shot too, with that dead tree in the front, and then the meteor comes streaking through the screen through the blue background, and it's glowing red, and it crashes somewhere in the distance, and that makes them want to go and see where it landed, or if they could find where it landed.
These scenes in like older movies always make me wonder like how they did stuff. Like I know some of this is miniatures, right?
Yeah,
like, but
yeah.
this scene in particular is kind of cool. I mean, it might be a miniature or a a
Might be
model
front
or
projection. Yeah, it might be like what do they call it?
Overlays. They do painting. They used to do
A lot-
painting on
actually,
film
there's a
too.
lot of
I always had the feeling that they drew it. Like that's how
Yeah.
that.
It could
Like
be
Chris-
animated. Yeah, it could be
Chris
animated.
saying, Chris saying, I think it's that. I think it's like the animation of it. It's definitely
like they're drawing on each frame or something.
It could be. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Well, we saw that in our previous transmission. With
Actually, yes.
Hellraiser. It
There-
had the same effects. There's an effect in this film later.
Yeah, we'll see it later on. Yeah. Well, let's
that
wait
really
to talk
reminded
about
me
that
of
until
that.
later
Yeah,
on.
I will.
Yeah. And there's a lot of like matte paintings, and actually we'll see later on with the blob effects. What they did was they took a picture, like for example, of the diner at the end. Maybe I should wait to talk about this, but I've already started. So they took a picture of the diner at the end, and they placed the blob on top of it on a table, and they just basically like rotated the table with the camera attached to it, so that the blob would like sort of ooze over the picture.
Well, what's funny too, and I mentioned this to Allie because we were watching it yesterday. Again, I watched it twice actually. One of the scenes where the blob is in there, you can actually see like handprints on the blob from where they were like molding it. You can see like the handprint in the
Which scene
in the
is
red.
that?
Oh man, when was that?
when it's coming out of the movie theater.
Yeah, I think it was when it was coming
When
out.
they
of the
all
movie
run
theater.
out of the movie theater.
Oh,
and then you
maybe
see it
when we
coming
get to
out of
that
the
scene,
movie theater.
hopefully we're able to see that.
Yeah, I don't know if the screenshot you got will.
Yeah,
really
it might not. It might.
It was
So I just
interesting, yeah.
I just took like one shot from each section. So before we move on from this scene, actually, I just want to talk about this. This reminds me of, and I know some Ken, you've and Mike have talked about this too. I think it's the movie Creep Show. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's the the story with
the story with Jordy
I'll
Verrill.
I'll let you guys tell it. Go ahead.
Who wants to go? You could go, Ken.
Okay. All right. So all right, fine. I'll steal the thunder. So, Jordy Verrill, played by Stephen King. All right.
Right.
I believe weren't a lot of those stories in Creepshow based on a lot of his writings?
I think they were, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just everything about it, it was so, I mean, if it was not an homage to the Blob, then it was just a straight out thievery of the Blob. Because all the elements were just about the same. I mean, except that the growing infection moved more slowly. I guess we'll put it that way. I don't want to ruin it for too many people that haven't seen it. But it was just one of those things that, again, on me going back to watch it again, realizing the type of influence that this movie had. I mean, there were like 3 just off the top of my head I could think of that were just blatant ripoffs of this. And I think two of them were in Creepshow. It was this one, and then wasn't the one the lake?
The Raft.
Yeah.
The Raft. Yeah, just that it was like, I just remember thinking of it. I mean, you did it twice.
The raft was that the one where it's in a lake or whatever, and it's
in a lake, and it's like a black oil slick thing.
I remember
that disturbed the hell out of me. That one, like
both of those, I think are great. They are homages to the Blob, but I think they made them their own. Both of those short stories are great.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah,
and it all really rewinds back to H.P. Lovecraft in the 30s.
The Color Out of Space, yeah.
The Color Out of Space, yeah.
That's true. Yep, because it starts with the meteor landing, right?
Yeah.
I want to say
it's not a blob or anything like that, but
right.
It's definitely a presence that's there to wreak havoc in some way or another.
On the way out to the star we're passing by, I did notice there's a meteor or whatever you want to call it, asteroid or something, heading towards Earth. Have you guys heard about that?
The one that they took the samples from?
No.
I know recently they've.
Yeah, I think so. They broke it up, but what happened is it's actually now, I guess they changed the trajectory a little bit, and I think it's actually some of it is heading towards us. So good luck, everybody.
I've been waiting for this.
I think the whole point is they break it up into smaller pieces and hopefully they burn up.
No, but what
and none of them contain blobs.
There is an actual asteroid
that we know of.
Next year is supposed to actually come towards us.
I will walk outside and embrace it with open arms.
Yeah, maybe we'll be in a movie theater and people will be laughing on the screen. We'll be like, "Ah!"
Ha ha ha!
Actually, I heard. I think isn't it supposed to impact into Uranus?
That's true.
Yes.
The asteroid.
Deep.
It already has, Chris. It already has.
It's going to, and from what I understand, it will not be a shallow impact.
That's true. It'll be very deep.
A dark, cavernous impact.
But
very deep.
Some say it might go, it might impact and then bounce back, so it'll go in and then out.
Well, maybe if we get some reverberation of plasma, we can kind of get it to a point where there's a little bit of lubrication.
And I also heard it's going to be a very sudden impact.
As we see this,
what you're seeing on the screen is exactly, it's a depiction of what will
starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Can I say I loved this because it's the classic, and Aliens did almost of homages to it. Like this was like the alien, Chris, you got an alien right behind you, don't you? I think I saw it. There you go. When the eggs, open up like that, that's that. And I was hoping to hear the hiss, but there was no hiss in this.
Oh, maybe he needs to get it out onto a tray.
That's true. Was that a Steve?
And what's great about this scene is that this scene combines 2 very visceral fears. So I know there's one, I forget the name, but they're both phobias.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Tryptophobia.
Yeah.
Tryptophobia.
Like things that have holes all over them. So you got that, and then when it cracks open and something else is inside it, that you could look at it and you're like, that's not supposed to be there. So it's like these two very, like I said, inherent visceral fears that I don't know if that's how they
over and over and over again on the
listen,
screen. Right
I have that fear. It's like potatoes. If I forget potatoes are in the cupboard and they grow the eyes, potatoes. I have a very real fear of
and they will grow despite lack of water
I can't look at them. I
search for
can't
water.
It like makes me crazy.
This kind of reminds me of a chewy gobstopper.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for showing the.
So let me just explain what the scene is, though. So the meteor crashes onto this like guy's land, and he walks up to it, and it's this little. It looks like a miniature moon. It even has like the craters on it and stuff. And he walks up to it and pokes it with a stick, and it cracks open like this. And I don't have the scene, but he starts poking the creamy middle with a stick, and it sort of like crawls up the stick. And you can see it here. It has like a clear color, and then it just it eats his hand. I guess it comes onto his hand.
This is a nightmare I have every night before I go to sleep.
Can we also just agree, like after 2020 and everything after that we don't that if we find some weird thing like this out in the woods, like just don't poke it.
Yeah, you got
just leave it alone.
You got to poke it with a stick.
Just leave it alone. Nothing good is going to come of it.
Oh, come on. You got to at least poke it with a stick.
Have you guys ever seen that moss stuff? That there's like a certain type of fungal growth or something like that, that it has like a gooey remnant that it leaves when it grows, that you'll just be like walking through the forest and there'll just be a pile of goo on the floor.
Oh.
Because it was like some kind of fungus, and I think that's like their part of their spores and how they reproduce. I could definitely be wrong, but I know there is a fungus that does that. Not that much.
Fungus can be messed up. There's those like species of fungus that like take over like bugs, like their
cordyceps.
Cordyceps. That's nightmare fuel right there.
Yeah.
There's something called have you ever heard of dog vomit fungus? So it's like, Mike, you've probably seen that.
Yeah.
So it usually grows in like where people have mulch or whatever, and it looks like a dog has thrown up, basically.
Yeah, it kind of has like chunks in it almost.
But it like grows. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from or whatever, but sometimes you get mulch or whatever, and it starts growing, and it's this big yellow.
Is anybody else hungry?
Let's talk of dog vomit. Oh.
And this goo on the stick. The goo on the stick.
Ken, I want to say this because this particular guy here, as soon as you mentioned the I think I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. That's what I was thinking immediately when I saw this again. I was like, that's that guy. And then I was like, oh no, this is like 30 years. If he's still that old when Airplane came out, I'm like, he's got to be immortal or something.
It was Bo Bridges, right?
No, this is his name is Olin Howland.
No, not him. I'm talking about
in Airplane. Yeah,
from Airplane. Bo Bridges, right?
Uh-huh.
Just when he first comes out of the house, and his hair is, even wilder than it is now.
Right.
And then the expression he has, and that's first thing comes to my mind. Wrong week, sniffing glue when he's upside down.
His ill-fitting denim outfit, just stumbling out.
This actor, I know him from the movie Them, which is a movie that came out a few years before this. Another famous science fiction movie from the 50s. It's about giant radioactive ants. And this guy, Olin Howland, played the character in the drunk tank in that movie with the famous line, "Make me a sergeant in charge of the booze." That's where I knew him from, and every line he delivers in this movie makes me think about that scene. He's kind of an interesting character. Sadly, he died a year after this movie was made, though. Yeah.
Way to ruin the
good job.
Way to ruin the mood, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't even know he was sick.
I mean, frankly, I'm glad he's dead.
That's it. I'm getting off.
Frankly, I'm glad. I mean, look what he did. Start poking things with a stick, and now
my thing is
now an alien menace on our planet.
Right?
That's what you get.
Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah, let him go.
That's natural selection at its best.
Don't poke the
Yeah, quite literally.
the characters are driving along and they almost run him over, and he asks them to take him to a doctor because the thing on his hand is eating his flesh. And I kind of like as the movie goes along, the blob gets larger and larger, and it gets more and more red in color because I guess it's like digesting the blood and whatever.
Do you think that was thought out? They thought that part out. I kind of feel like they just didn't, like in the beginning when they're poking with the stick, they had an idea for the slime or whatever, but didn't have a color in mind. You think there was like thought out all the way through?
No, they did. Yeah, he mentioned if you listen to the commentaries, which I have on the Criterion Collection. By the way, they remastered the movie, so if you watch it now, it's it looks great. This is the remastered version that we're watching. I have clips from here
in the description.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, but on the commentary, Jack Harris says, he talks all about it. So
he talks about actually doing that.
Yeah, huh. Yeah. It was made from silicone, and they would mix in red food coloring to give it the color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just say this slide that you have up right now? One, Ken, see, these are the glasses I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Ken's got the glasses, but also. I'm getting very incredibly warm.
Oh, I was getting turned on.
No, just looking at the wool suit. I was getting turned on. It's very wool. It's very
the shoulder pads is really what's getting me.
I'm starting to spitz a little bit here.
Oh, those aren't shoulder pads. This man is a specimen of beauty.
He goes to the gym a lot. Yeah. Very swole.
Lots of shrugs.
Swole.
Plays for the Giants.
Yeah,
it's like this is obviously a guy that was on soap operas, and he's got
actually
stuff.
He was in a bunch of westerns actually.
Okay,
and he was also an alumni of one of the great science fiction movies of the 50s. Also, George Powell's When Worlds Collide. Yeah,
I don't think I've seen that either.
It's a good one. You should check it out.
I can't think of anything other than how bad he probably smells with the wool suit on.
Mothballs, maybe?
So it's such a thick wool suit.
Everyone in the 50s, even during the summer, wore a full wool suit.
Right? Like it's so wool.
Just sweat.
And I love how this proceeds with him too, that it's like, they bring the old guy in, he looks at his hand, immediately dopes him up with who knows what the hell.
Let's make him comfortable.
And then he gets on the phone with like his nurse or his secretary, and he's like, "Yeah, come back. I got to amputate this guy's arm."
He's like, "Hold on, old man. You ever had a speedball?"
Old timer.
Yeah.
And that poor nurse. I'm sure we'll get to those scenes. I'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
No, but you know what's funny though? If you look at, so I don't know if you looked in the background at all, because the second time I watched it, I started looking at the background. Like you see his degrees and stuff. One of them in one of the scenes is like a thing for polio.
Yeah, and it shows up that same polio.
It shows up later.
Polio thing is in the police office too. Later
they're using the same like.
I noticed that. Yeah.
When did Jonas Salk, was that his name? The guy that came up with the polio vaccine. When was that?
My Jeopardy 19.
Don't lie.
I mean, it was a huge thing before the.
I mean,
vaccine
President Franklin Delano Roosevelt had polio, so it was probably after him, I would say.
It was early 1900s because they still had the iron lungs.
One of the things I thought about during this too was like we hadn't been to the moon yet in this. You know what I mean? So a lot of this stuff
may
was like
not still have been to the moon.
Oh, no, wait, hold on.
That's conspiracy theory. This if we're gonna do it, but.
Austin Space.
No.
No, but like it was interesting, like what they thought, because I remember one of the guy, the young kids or whatever, at one point they were like, oh, this is a part of the sky. Like he holds up the rock.
Oh yeah, when they
piece of the sky, piece of the sky. Like no concept of like what, I don't know. In 50, what was this? 58.
58. Yeah.
Was there? Were we already putting satellites or anything yet?
Sputnik was.
When was Sputnik?
I think
wasn't that in the 40s?
That was like 50. No, Sputnik I think was like
It was in the
58 or
50s.
59. It was not very.
So this was probably the beginning of the space
No,
race.
but I
Space,
feel
yeah, the
like-
space because it took us once we started the program. It took like 10 years for us to finally land someone on the moon, which was 69. So
Way to-
it was
way to
probably
bring
around
up-
this time. Yeah,
Way to bring up the fact that we lost the space race. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. Thanks.
no,
Yeah,
we
it's
won
a
this.
sore
We won the
subject.
space race.
Thanks for bringing it up. I did. Sputnik went.
No.
We didn't win that shit. We. All right.
Just got a weird
Sputnik.
concept. Who won?
I have
So-
a yeah.
So the characters are speeding along, trying to get the guy to the doctor, right? The old what did they call him? The old fella,
Old timer.
old timer.
Old timer.
They call him that like 60 times in
Hey
that
there, old timer.
movie. Old timer, you old. I was gonna curse
Yo.
there.
And he's like, I'm only
You
2 years
garbage
older
little
than you,
baby.
Steve.
We were in high school together.
Now this is one thing I want to talk about where they, they're racing along and they run into I think they called them in the beginning credits the teenagers.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
All right. And actually a couple of the guys look like they might be, but definitely not the lead guy.
No.
I don't understand the relationship that Steve's character has with them.
Yeah,
Because the entire first time they show up, they're like the bullies and they're
Yeah.
enemies.
Mhm.
I'm gonna race you, and then all of a sudden they're like best friends.
I thought the same thing because I was like, he tries
but
to
you know
do it.
why?
Hold on, he does the backing up and he does all that, and I thought, right, they're bullying him. But then you get another scene after that, and then they're just like, hey man, what do you do? Like trying to
No,
hang
but
out with him, and it's
They do explain that. They explain that because they say, "Oh, he could have," because the guy in the background that looks like the guy from Terminator 2. Are you with John Connor? He's like
Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
he's like he could have gotten us in real trouble. He could have turned us in to the cop, to Dave or whatever his name was, right? I think it's
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think they have
Generic
a begrudging respect for him, because
Yeah, for the fact.
he first of all he had the balls to race them, to do it backwards, and he didn't rat them out or so I think when he meets up with them again afterward, they're kind of like, all right, this guy's on the
But
level.
then they act like they're his best friend afterwards. That's what was odd. I
It's
think.
interesting though.
Yeah.
No, but this is a great point because one of the things that I kind of like about this movie is that there are no real bad guys in it. Everyone is kind of
Except
like
for
a real
Blob,
human being. And the screenwriter tried to give everybody at least some kind of characterization. Like even the cop that hates the kids, right? They give him a backstory. Like the reason he hates the kids is because some teenagers that were like racing or something accidentally killed his wife.
What?
On the road.
Hey, that
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, no. Just
Yeah.
because someone ran his wife off the
Yeah.
road doesn't mean all 17-year-olds belong in jail or something
It
like
does,
I
it
must-
does
I
mean
must
that. That's I
And
And
believe it.
also, he's a war vet too, right? Like he has a war.
Yes.
So everybody is kind of human in this movie. Like there's no real even though that cop has something out for the
Jim,
teenagers.
The
Yeah, I think Jim
shorter
is his
cop.
name. Yeah.
yeah.
He really ends up being kind of a good guy in the end, right?
I still feel like the cops in this entire movie are made to kind of sound like idiots. I don't
Yeah, no.
know
Well,
what they
that's
do.
that's the kind of genre. So the idea that Jack Harris had for this movie when he decided to produce it was he wanted to like squish together the two genres of delinquent teenage movies that were happening in the 50s. That was like a big thing, and also the sci-fi boom that was happening in the 50s too. You had Rebel Without a Cause that came out like in 55, which was a few years before this one.
James
James
was.
Dean, yeah, and that's why they wanted Steve McQueen in this because he was kind of like a heartthrobby kind of guy
And
too.
He was like 30 years old.
Right? Yeah, 30 years old, but
Which is funny though, because I don't. I'm one that I can recognize when a man is attractive.
I know you.
I'm
I
not
know you.
attracted to men,
No,
but
Mike, I would.
Steve
I would
McQueen
do
does
dirty
not strike
things
me
to
as
Steve
an
McQueen.
attractive man.
No, listen, as a woman, I'm telling you right now, I would do dirty things to Steve McQueen.
Really, I was
Whether he's
wondering
playing
that.
an 18-year-old,
I can
when he's
get-
30, or yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
It's like
I
I
don't-
can get the attraction, but he just even for 28, he looks older than 28.
He
That's
does.
what I'm saying. He looks
Yeah.
like he's 40. He looks like
he
even
he
this
was,
guy
What's
uh,
right
wrong
he
with
was
here.
a-
40?
Steve
Even this
McQueen
guy.
was in the military too before he made this movie. He was in
Was
he
he?
was in the Marines actually.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Even
so
this
I don't-
guy though, in the front, the main guy here, like he looks like a 40-year-old Italian guy.
Yeah,
out
he does.
corner
Yeah.
of New York City, like
Yeah, the guy in the middle
forget
is
about
really
it,
the only
forget
one that
about
could
it.
kind of.
I don't know. Who the
Yeah.
fuck-
Yeah, the guy in the middle definitely,
It looks like Bill from
you
Bill.
could
It does.
Yeah, yeah.
Bill and
Right.
Ted.
Yeah, he does.
20-year-old.
That's funny.
Sorry, Ken.
100%. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the point is he passes by them and they get kind of like offended that he like passed them on the road or whatever.
I missed that whole thing too, where they actually like, because I remember the scene, but I watched it twice. I remember the scene where afterwards they come, oh, you broke the speed. I never remember this part though for some reason.
Yeah, this is why they end up like accosting him at outside of the doctor's office in the next.
Yeah, they watch him pass and they kind of bust a Yui and start to follow.
So anyway, we got
sorry.
some strawberry flavored fruit roll-ups here, and
Looks like a piece of ham.
Did they say? Do you know, Chris, what
barbecue
it is
chicken.
for it?
What's that?
Do you know what they used for it?
Barbecue
To like,
Yeah, it's for the Blob special effect. It was silicone.
is this also fun?
Yeah, and they, like I said, they colored it with vegetable food dye. So anyway, they show up at the doctor's office, and the doctor takes the coat off of the old guy's hand and to take a look at it. Old timer. And then the doctor says, "Go." After he takes a look at him, he realizes that he's in pretty bad shape, and he's like, "Go back to where you found him and see if you can find any other people or evidence to see what happened." But then as they go outside, they get accosted by, the crew that we just saw in the red car.
I find it funny that the doctor sends civilians on an errand that maybe he should send the authorities on.
Yeah,
He's like, you go check out the house that was broken into, and
Right.
Or whatever it is. I'll stay here.
Well, to be honest,
Yeah, you know something? You just turned 18. How about you go and do something that maybe a federal agent should be doing? Yeah, that's fine.
Lived
Go
alone.
ahead.
happens a
don't
lot.
don't
Happens a lot.
bother taking any hazmat gear with you or.
And actually, one thing I want to ask everybody, just the slide previous.
Yeah.
All right.
That one?
What about the stuff on his face?
Yeah,
I couldn't, like, for some
Are
reason.
they just liver spots because he's old? Maybe.
I don't know, but those are huge liver spots.
Well,
I don't
listen,
know.
Yeah.
Was that
He was out in
makeup?
the woods. He lives in.
Yeah, I
like,
think
a
maybe
little
that's what it
cabin
was,
in
is
woods.
like
I
the
think it was
dirt.
dirt, like
Dirt? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Can we just look at
Is-
her dress? Can we look at her dress?
It is cool.
God,
I love her. Yeah, I love that yellow dress
I
on
want to
her.
wear that dress.
It's such an
You know,
awesome.
and another thing I want to mention about Jane, I think her hair changes length throughout the movie.
Agreed.
There's a couple of scenes where it's a bit longer. It's like, this is the length you see her at,
Mhm.
and then like midway, for some reason, I don't know if maybe they just styled it differently. It just looked like it got longer.
I'll have to look at that as we go through because that's not something I noticed.
Can you also
I
note
couldn't-
that any of the other slides that you do with her on it? That
Yeah,
her
I have the whole. We
facial-
have the whole movie, so we'll
but
see
her
her
facial
evolution of her hair.
expression- No, but none of that. Her facial expression never changes. Because
Oh,
no
she's
matter what
horrible.
she's saying, whether she's happy, sad, scared, it's always the exact same facial expression.
Well, we had a conversation too when we were watching it yesterday about back at this time in early filmmaking, how a lot of the actors that were brought into film were originally like theater actors, and film acting is very much facial expressions and making, because there's close-ups and that sort of thing. But a lot of them were theater actors where your facial expressions, they kind of make a difference when you're on stage, but you're so far away from the audience that really it's your body movement. It's like what's going on in the scene, a lot of that stuff. So I kind of feel like a lot of the great actors from back then just recognize that the way to get across emotions on film was through your facial expressions. And if you look at Steve McQueen, I'm pointing at the screen there, but if you Steve McQueen's face there, he's very facially expressive.
Yes, that's true.
Whereas
Yep.
everyone else in the movie,
Is
I mean,
very-
even her, she gives a little bit more,
No, I
face
think she's
stuff.
no.
But everyone else, their faces basically stay the same. They're delivering the lines, in an emotive way, but they're not moving
enunciating,
their.
but they're enunciating the words, but like you would in theater, but they're not using the facial expressions that would that later in later years became more relevant in movies and stuff.
I'd like to actually, that's a great point, Pat, because the three actors that you see on the scene here, that's not Jane, Steve McQueen, Olin Howland, and then the doctor, let me just, I forget what his name is. Stephen Chase is the actor's name. They were really the only professional actor, like movie actors on this, that are in this movie. Everyone else came from like the local theater in this town in Pennsylvania where they shot it, or they were just locals in the town. So the only real people that were used to filming movies like this were those three people. So everyone else, it's the stage acting tends to have a bit like it's very broad, right? Because you have to be able to get the audience that are far away from you to like get what you're trying to give them, right? Whereas, like you said, when the camera's next to you, you don't have to be so broad because you can have close-ups and all these things. So I think that's probably why. Also, a lot of these people, the actress that played Jane, Anita Corsair, I think her name was.
Something.
This is her first movie that she was in, so she was a complete amateur.
Yeah, but she was actually, so I could see why they picked her though, and as I was watching this, like I said, I was watching that stuff because he's so emotive with his face, and then I don't feel like she was purposefully doing it, which is why some scenes I don't feel she's actually giving like facial acting, going on, but
she was also very nervous about her acting in the film. In fact, at the beginning, when they first started filming, they would show her the dailies, and after the her first viewing of the dailies, she was so like horrified by the way she came off on film that she didn't even want to come back the next day to continue. So I think she was a bit shy also, which might have added to her lack of expressiveness.
Can I just say one thing? So back then, yeah, she was, but also she was not. While she was a main, while she was a main character, she was not. Women really were not. Like Steve McQueen was they needed a woman that wasn't going to overshadow Steve.
Damsel in distress.
Right. You couldn't have had some like, what I mean? You couldn't have had some very over the top kind of woman.
Him.
Right.
Would upstage him too. And like, that's just what it was like back then. So I feel like she does play that well because she's very, like, if you asked me right now, if I closed my eyes and you asked me to describe what she looks like, I couldn't do it. So she wore a yellow dress, she had brown hair. I don't know.
I just want to get her, make sure I get her name correct. It's Anita Corso. Is the actress's name.
What'd you call me?
God bless you.
What do you need?
I need an acting lesson.
All right, so in the next scene, I just want to talk about, there's so many great cars in this movie, right? I love all the old cars. I should have.
I love the paint job on the bully's car. Like that's that's a really
it's like candy apple red or something.
It's almost like a rust. At least in this one, it looks like it.
Mm-hmm.
It might be later, it might be something different, but it's not a color you usually see. And I just love like the shaping of kind of like the bonnet of the car, and the sidewalls, how everything curves down, and
I love the white wall tires. And
we need to get white wall tires back. It needs to become a thing again.
I don't know why they didn't. They went out of style. It's so
they were
cool
awesome.
Yeah.
You can go down to Cuba, and I'm sure they got
So-
some.
Yeah,
When
definitely.
they crown him, you know how they say like, "Here's the crown," whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it was from his car.
Yeah, like a
though.
missing hubcap. I thought that
I
too.
thought they took his hubcap off.
Well,
no?
he does look to the back of the vehicle like you took
Right,
my
like you're
hubcap.
Yeah, but it's
looking
not
here,
missing in this
because it's
screenshot.
right. It's at this scene when all of it happens. So
Yeah.
it's not missing it. So that's why I was like,
Well, we don't see the other side of the car
Right,
either,
right.
so it might be the one of the hubcaps from the other side.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was always a question I had when I was looking at it. I was like, where did that hubcap come from?
Right, because they put it on his head like it's his crown. And
I also did
Yeah.
the bench seating in there with no seat.
Oh yeah, no seatbelts.
Sitting on it back in the day.
So
It's
you're
better- it's
ejected
better for
just
make-
perfectly as you hit the
making out on dark roads where the Blob comes.
That's what I want to bring back. I want to bring back the bench seating with no seatbelt, so that if I accidentally stop too short, I just get flung
That's
Yeah.
it.
50 feet from the
Well,
from the car.
never riding with him again.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
This
All right.
this was also good. Like the police officer thing.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the casting for this was pretty good. Although I feel like they had an opportunity to really make him more of a hero. Like I feel like everything was kind of rushed in the movie. Like, and maybe that's because it's an indie film. Like they didn't have time afterwards to figure out like what all the character development was. I felt like stuff like even what Ken was saying earlier about like some of the stuff, like you don't, even though I watched it twice, I was confused by some stuff, like them coming up after the fact, like, oh, you beat us or whatever. I don't know, like I feel like more character development.
I don't know that he needs though. The cop.
Well, I mean, it's also only like an hour and a half long, the movie.
Yeah,
so.
like why does he believe them more than the other cops?
But I
You know
think
what I mean?
that's just
So
that back in the day. They just
I feel the other cop just has had a lot of run-ins with these boys.
yeah.
And he says it later, like he runs into them. They're talking about them. And
Like
he's
he
like,
knows
oh,
them.
those kids. He's hanging out with those boys. So it just seems like he kind of, is used to dealing with them in a specific way and knows that they're trouble in the neighborhood.
Well,
Is that
what you guys
a
were?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Yeah.
Is
And I
that-
think
is-
this is also another thing of the time is that one thing that I thought was very strange is, you got high school kids calling cops by their first name,
Yeah.
Mhm.
acting like they're buddies. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to assume this is like, small town in the 50s. Everybody
yeah.
knows each other.
That was the whole. I think that's one of the point. This movie is kind of like a snapshot of small town America in the 50s, or at least a certain segment of it. So you get, it was shot in a small town where everyone kind of knew each other. In fact, like I said, a lot of the people in the movie and the extras are locals of the town. I have the name written down somewhere. I'll look it up later on. So all of the places where they shot are actual places that were in that town, and people were excited to see them, when the movie came out, because that's the place where they went food shopping, or that's the movie theater that they go to. And the other thing is, one of the main things that Jack Harris wanted to get across in this movie is he wanted to do like a delinquent teen, / sci-fi movie where instead of the teens being just completely like, hooligans or whatever, that, he wanted to show that they were actually decent people too. Like I said, there's no real bad guys in this movie. So since it's a small town, it would make sense maybe that they do know the 3 police officers that that work there, and the police, because it's such a small town, they, especially I think his name is Dave, right? The police
Mhm.
officer. He's like, he even says, I don't want to throw you in, like, be careful. I don't want to throw you into the jail cell tonight. Like,
Is the technical term.
So wait, I can.
Wasn't it? I'm not going to lock them up in jail
Lock
like
them up.
some vagrant.
yeah, so like some vagrants, right? Yeah.
But can I say, so because I've heard all your guys' stories. You all live up, you all live.
Yeah,
in
Ken,
New
you're in
New
New
York
York City, right?
right?
Too.
So I
Well,
grew
not
up.
in the city, but
Well,
I
surrounding
grew
areas.
up in tiny town, upstate New York, tiny town, and I will tell you this: that is not even in the 50s. Even when I was in high school, the cops, like, yeah, we knew them by their first name because there wasn't a lot of them, and they didn't like, the only thing they did was bust up like parties we had. So they'd come and be like, oh, and they would just be like, everybody get home, or like, no, they didn't give drinking tickets, or they just said everybody just get home or get whatever, and then. But you knew their names,
and then they'd be like, Phyllis.
The worst thing they would do
hi.
is they would steal all the beer that we had and they would dump it, or they would just take it for themselves. But like, you knew them by name, they knew your parents, and they're like, listen, I'm not gonna give you a ticket. I'm not
Say hello to your mother for me.
Right, like that's what it was. Like, that's like, you knew them by their first names. You had known them your whole life. I could tell you everybody on every street and every friggin' house that I grew up in, because I grew up in a tiny town, and that's what it was. You knew them. Whether
Mike is. Can I just say, is that a reference to what's his name's in person?
To Mark Wahlberg.
I thought that's what that was.
Hey, goat.
Say hello to your mother for me.
Is that Mark
So,
Wahlberg?
and this, from what you said, Ali, I actually had an experience like this in my younger days. So I was driving a bunch of friends home from a party we had gone to upstate.
Yeah.
And so we're passing through a more rural area, like at, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we were at this, party until like 5, and it was like 2 or 3 hours upstate. So we're driving back. I was like, hey guys, I'm going to pull over on an exit. We're going to go to a supermarket. I want to get a Snapple. So just to tell you around what time that was, that people were still drinking Snapple. And, I pull into a strip mall with a supermarket. I get out, we get our drinks. I come back to my car. Police car just pulled right in front of my car and blocks my way. And I could tell from how the guy started talking to me, because he didn't recognize me.
Yeah. Yep.
So he knew, you're an out-of-towner.
Yep.
What are you doing here? What is someone? And I was much
You're not
younger
from
at that.
around these parts.
Right. And it's like, what are you doing at 9 a.m. in our town? And look like you're 20 years old. There's no way someone your age would be up at this hour,
not causing
unless you're up to some nonsense.
Well, this is also why I wanted to bring Allie on, because she's honestly, you're the horror movie expert. So I felt like it was very apropos. And then this particular movie too, it's set in this little small town, so I thought she would be you'd have some good insight on this. So
now, being set in this small town in Pennsylvania, what did you guys think of their accent? I think the accent kept changing.
Yep. They were trying to do an accent, but it was not the right Pennsylvania accent. But
right. It's some of them sound like Steve McQueen half the time to me. I was like, are you trying to be like from Brooklyn? Like, I don't get it.
He's like, yeah, see?
Yeah. He goes, oh, we saw this guy. This guy over here. And I was like, where's this supposed to be? Like, I didn't even know it was supposed to be Pennsylvania.
I'm from Pennsylvania over here.
Yeah. That's the feeling I was getting.
By the way, it's Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. And I just want to make a note. They have a Blob festival every year in Phoenixville, nice. Where that theater that's in the movie, which we'll see later on, is still there. And they have in the festival, everybody runs out of the theater and they bring out in a bucket. They still have the blob. They still have the silicone blob from the movie.
It's like this big.
Yeah, it's shriveled up.
Yeah, and they bring it out and everyone can look at it and,
it's like
and
a
touch
gonad.
it and stuff.
So, Chris, what you're telling me is we're going to go there this year?
So we're going to do a live.
I would. Yeah, I'd do that. Sure.
100%. You guys went to Salem without me.
Yeah, I got my Salem cap on.
You can't go to Phoenixville, Pennsylvania without me too.
All right. So he's being pulled over. He pulls up right.
Well, they're racing backwards, right? And the cop sees him and they pull him over. Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to say, I love the line. He's like, first, well, I think this is a little bit later, where he's like, he's in the police station. And he starts talking about monster or whatever. And he's like, yeah, first you're driving backwards. Now monsters. And it's like
he really has it out for them.
Driving backwards is really a gateway drug. Yeah. It's really a gateway drug.
First driving backwards. Now you're talking about monsters.
Yeah, it leads to monsters every time. Every time.
Is it a Buick that he's driving? What is that?
I think it's a Chevy or something. I should have looked it up. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Took the Chevy to Levy.
I was trying to look. You could see on the dash there's some kind of word, wording right there, but I can't.
Is it like Cadillac?
Capital?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm sure we'll hear about it in the
Hold on,
comments.
hold on. Wait. Leave it on that slide. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Don't forget, you got to get your. Getting closer to the screen is not going to.
It does. It says Buick.
Does
Oh,
it
it's
say
Buick?
It says Buick. It's just got the cursive B. And
Someone has good eyes.
Well, I went right up to
It's
our
not
big
me.
screen that's in front of us.
It can't be.
Buick.
Not me either.
Let's be honest, though. Buicks were the best for having the big.
I
seats.
love this
Big
car.
seats for activities.
Like
I-
checkers?
Yeah.
There's
checkers.
enough space for chess.
Chess, checkers, any kind of board game you want to play. Really. you
Oh,
could
speaking
play
of
it.
chess, I have something to say about chess
Matter.
later on.
Yep.
So they meet back up after with the other kids after Dave stops them, and he the main, like, the leader of the other group, I guess, tells him a story about how they played a prank on the cop that hates the teens. I think his name is Jim. And that they're like, Steve McQueen is like, I have to go to where the old timer his house is to see if there's any evidence to find for, and he's like, come along with us. And they're like, well, we're going to go see the Midnight Monster movie, but they end up going along with him anyway.
I love the Hugo back one. The guy in the red
Right.
shirt.
That was a
Yep.
great face.
He had such a John Lennon teddy boy hairstyle there.
Yeah, that's true.
know?
Yeah.
All of them, though. Look at them. They look like these just old school. I want them.
I mean,
all.
I'm getting a Depeche Mode feel from the guy in the red shirt.
I can feel that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Look at her
Anyone
face.
have
Look at her
Jim-
face in that picture. Really? These guys again? Really? You can just hang out without
Yeah, I
them?
know.
Really?
I think
That's
she's-
and that's
she's
the one
staring
thing
at
that
Look at her.
really
She's like,
kinda-
really? I want to be alone making out with you.
He's hovering over me.
Buick. Get your friends out of here.
That's the one thing that annoys you about this thing too, is like she is just, tell me what to do, Steve.
Right? She's just
The
there.
entire- Yeah, exactly. Like she never. I don't know. It was. I guess it
That
was
was the
again
time.
part of the time.
It was
but
the time.
the
The
times,
damsel
yeah.
in distress.
Yeah,
She's
yeah, but it was just too much.
No, it's something that has to be said, right? I mean, because it
Yeah.
was a side. It is shocking to people nowadays, because I guess we've come, even though there's a long way to go. We've come a
They probably paid
Went
her
away,
in
at least.
makeup to make this movie. And
Honestly,
everyone else got money.
right? Like,
Paid her in Tupperware.
Yeah. Maybe it's
know what-
Maybelline.
You know what's funny too, though. There's no. I don't think there's any rear view mirrors on either the right
no.
hand side.
Well,
or
they
the
didn't need them
left-hand
back.
side of the car.
They didn't.
That's
need
why the
seat
cars look
belts
so
or-
cool back then.
Yeah.
Is because there was no safety measures at all. It was
Drive-
purely aesthetic.
drive fast.
except they were made out of like titanium.
to ensure
face, that-
optimal
Chris, Can you
shrapnel.
just go one back? Can you just go to that
Yeah.
slide? Can
Yeah,
we
you
just,
can
can we just acknowledge-
appreciate
can we
his-
just acknowledge?
He looks like he's watching a dog poop.
He's like, well, oh boy, man.
Oh boy!
Look, mom, movie.
Although I,
Gee,
did,
Lucas!
I will say in this particular that shot though, that's pretty decent lighting. I mean, it's a little harsh. but
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
a little glimmer in his eye. He's got some nice.
Nice gap.
That's why I like the look of this movie. Like, especially, I like the choice of colors for a shirt, the green and the blue. Like, it's very science fiction-y. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just gives me the ambiance, the like feeling of like 50s science fiction.
I agree. The colors they used in all of this is really like, that was one thing I feel like they actually paid attention to, like the detail.
What about
of
his
it.
tuft of chest hair coming out of the top of it?
Well, that's just
Yeah,
well,
hot and
everyone-
bothered. We're on a podcast.
he is
You know, hot
17
and
years
bothered.
old, Pat. So
And then a
17-year-old.
blatant teenager with the most ridiculous 5 o'clock shadow.
Right? And and not only like he's got crow's feet and like forehead wrinkles, like and the smile wrinkles, like that's
This Ian
The only
Ziering.
The only thing they're missing in this is for one of the teenage characters to be balding.
oh 100%.
yeah.
Like that's one of the only things you're missing in this. So, yeah, like
I don't think they would have even hit it. If they did, they would have just put a very fake toupee on him and then just made us believe that he was
possibly just Put a lot of pomade in it.
Yeah.
They have all had colonoscopies already.
100%.
Well,
And this is- and
that's
this
what
next
that's what
slide
they were
is a
doing
video
before
of
they.
that.
That's what they were doing before they brought the old man to the.
That's why he had that face in the previous.
The old timer, the old timer.
All right, so this is the scene where he calls up the there's the special effects.
But everywhere,
calls up the
everywhere
nurse.
that they do that, they cover him up. So in the car, when he first gets into the car, they're like, "Let's cover him up."
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that's going to solve.
We don't want to see the
cover him up so we don't see it.
No, he said
You know,
that's
it's funny. It's like
they didn't
what,
have
like
graphics then, so they did
Yeah,
that to
so-
like so
no,
they
I
could cover
know.
him up, and then when they undo him,
I know it's a
then all of a
movie,
sudden now it's all the way
trick,
up
but-
his like, but they just didn't have the. Still fantastic. Look at that thing right there.
It's like when,
I want to eat it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it looks like
I
a
wanna eat
gummy.
it, right? Like I want to eat that.
yeah, silicone.
Yeah.
It's like, my
But it's like
teeth.
it's like
Yeah.
when
When I was a kid.
people are not feeling well and you don't know what to say to them, so you're like, you want a glass of water or something?
Yeah.
You want a blanket?
Let's have a nice lie down.
Alien
Yeah.
goo is devouring your
Here,
skin.
let me just cover it up so I don't
You
have to
just
look
put this
at
coat
it.
over
Let me
you,
just.
so I don't
wanna
have to look at
this.
it.
Just-
You want a glass of water?
you want some peanut butter to go with your jelly?
I have some acetaminophen.
Some chicken soup, maybe? Or
For the teenage soul.
so anyway, the doctor, he realizes what's going on, and he calls up the nurse to come in because he's like, I have to amputate. And there's a scene here that's very similar to I
He's got
feel like
chili on his hand. Let's amputate it.
I feel like Mike, back just calling back to our video on the thing. There's a scene where the if you remember the creature that they bring back to the station, they cover him with this like wool blanket like this.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in the movie here where where the blanket starts moving, like the scene in the thing.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of similarities in this movie to the John Carpenter's version of the thing.
I'm sure John Carpenter pulled a
In
lot
fact,
from this.
yeah, there's a lot of
This is what he grew up
similar
on,
scenes.
you know?
Yeah.
But you still get like James Wan in it too and stuff. The
Mhm.
you know, even like the Grudge kind of stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's always been a trope like in these kind of movies is seeing something moving under the blanket to like, oh, what is
Yeah,
it?
and
Is it
You know, they had to do all this stuff too. Like somehow they had to figure out like with strings or someone like hiding to do it, as opposed to like now there's animatronics. You can do like all sorts of stuff to make
Yeah.
stuff look
This
really
was
real.
real
They
practical
had to like
effects.
figure out this like duct tape and bubble gum way of doing stuff. That's kind of really cool.
I like that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
creativity in it.
No, I
And,
agree. But that's what I think about when I watch this stuff too.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like you can't really get into these older movies because that's what you're thinking about. Like, how could they possibly have done some of this stuff? And then you start thinking about like how that all happens, which is why I think you don't get scared by it because you're not like engrossed in it. You
That's
know?
also why I think movie making was much more difficult back then. Like watching these kind of ones, you know, nowadays they have CGI and they have back then they had to try to make you. Like I said, my dad was terrified. He ran home from this movie thinking the Blob was actually going to be out there. It's this like young teenage kid, and as we watch it right now, we're laughing at like this is so ridiculous, but they didn't have. So when these kind of things came out, he was like, it was, you know, and he even talked about them. And, you know, he's the ants. He goes, even that he remembers seeing in the theaters. And he goes, I remember being like,
Ants.
I'm going to be on my way home and these giant ants are going to come kill me or the Blob is going to come get me. And it was, he goes, he also said by the time he was a little bit older teenager, it was fun for him because he'd take a girl to the movie theater with him. And these kind of movies, the girls would be like, ah! And he's like, you get a girl to cuddle up with you because they'd be scared of these. I was
That's
like,
why I
wow.
watched it.
If
Is
I'm
it-
not mistaken, this era is pre even EC Comics, so you don't have like the Vault of
Right.
Horror and you know all those other things. I may be wrong. I'm not sure what years those came out. I thought in the 60s, but
Most of
Um,
them. That's why he said this. Like I said, my dad was born in '53. This came out in '58, but because he grew up in Wayland, which is a tiny, tiny town, most like the movie theater they had there didn't get these kind of movies until like 5-6 years after they actually came out.
Mhm.
You know, so by the time he watched this, he was, you know, like a young teenager, like young teenager, and watching this, and he was like, it was, you know, it was in color. It was you believed, you thought like, no way, somebody made a movie like this. It must mean like this is something that could happen, and you ran around. But like we watch it now, and it's
Yeah.
because I think the
Well,
horror.
Well, it's campy because they were campy back then.
Right.
This is how people were. I mean, this is,
Yes.
it's not like they're putting on a show trying to be kitsch and bring it back to like
Yeah.
a retro feel. This is actually it, so you're seeing people at their corniest, but I mean, this is kind of how society was back then.
That's why it's fun watching it now, because it's just
this type of movie too is geared towards like not children, but like a teenage crowd too. So not a very sophisticated audience.
teenagers
but
are super smart.
just to mention it also, like, just 10 years before this movie was made, the world was plunged into one of the bloodiest, most destructive wars that the world has ever seen.
Never heard
And
of
a
it.
lot of the people that acted in this movie fought in that war, or the Korean War too.
Even my
So,
uncle was drafted into Vietnam.
what's that?
My uncle, my dad's brother, was drafted into Vietnam. So.
Pictures, right? I don't believe it.
No, Picture, it didn't happen, Mike. Picture.
Oh, I even messed up that, didn't I?
What's that recent movie with the little kid that lives in the clock, and then there's the guy that makes the automatons or whatever.
Oh, Hugo,
right? When he talks
Yeah.
about old, like Millier or whatever, like when they were just making up
Mhm.
ways of it. Because I get this feeling from this film is like that there's still some of that, like in this, right? Like they're the lighting, the just everything about it, how they approach the filmmaking process is just, I don't know, it's super interesting.
I love this kind of thing. It reminds me, movies back then were a lot closer to what stage productions were like.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that kind of creativity. Like when you're doing a stage production and you're on the team that has to do like the the sets and everything, and the special effects, I guess. Like you have to be very creative in how you do things, and that becomes kind of like a style. And I love that kind of style of like 50s science fiction movie stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, the technology here, right, is the same technology pretty much, except for the film, the actual film and cameras, etc. That was there when Star Wars, they were still using miniatures, they were still using models and things like that to do what they did. And the difference between like the special effects in here,
oh yeah, things evolved, sure,
versus,
yeah,
it's just a matter of like figuring out, looking at movies and seeing like, oh, what they did there was this, and they figured out all the little
special effects things though. There was a few groundbreaking movies that revolutionized the world of special effects, one of which being 2001. What was the other? What?
I said Debbie Does Dallas, and then there was the other
that whole rim job scene.
Fantastic.
All the merkins flying around.
No, but you had like 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? Which was a huge influence on Alien and Star Wars, and all of the stuff that came after. So this was pre 2001.
Yeah, but it's interesting to like see where the evolution from this kind of movie, that was such a hit for what it was back then.
Actually, this movie didn't get very good reviews when it came out. It became more popular as time went on. But I believe that the critics at the time did not give this movie good reviews.
I wouldn't have expected them to.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the scene where they come across where the meteor had landed, and they do this thing where it's like a hot potato. And Steve McQueen like is smelling it. He's like smelling the meteor. And like you said, I think it was you, Pat, right? Who's like when one of the teenagers is like, "It's a piece of the sky."
Go grab another out of the holodeck upstairs. You can grab another.
The food replicator?
Yes, the food replicator. I'm sorry. Yeah. Earl Grey, hot. She's upper decking us. So, I love how Steve McQueen never has a belt on too. Such a little belt.
Right, they go to the old timers shack.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the dog yet. Oh my!
This is
And
this
the
is
dog.
Making some
That's
moves
all
here.
that's all that she cares
There he
about.
is. Yeah.
There he is. Cute little guy.
Yeah, he's such a cute little.
He is a little scruffy
pooch.
little guy.
He's a
You know?
scruffy.
He is scruffy.
Yeah.
He's got some age to him. You can tell.
One of my, he's an old timer.
He's no timer.
So they rescue the dog. Do you want to say anything about the dog, Allie?
She didn't have her headphones on. She didn't hear you.
Do you want to say anything about the dog?
I want to say that I would like to give him a nice home where nobody's trying to feed him to blobs and just leaving him in supermarkets to be eaten alive.
Yeah, they tend to just like leave him alone.
Really
It's
do.
like, oh, we're going to this supermarket with a monster.
And look at him. He's
Let's
like,
just leave him on the floor.
my owner just walked out. His hair was all ajar. I don't know. I don't know where he could have been going.
He was smoking methamphetamine before.
And then he was like, but then this pretty lady in a yellow dress picked me up, and I was all right.
He's like, rare.
Turned into a cat.
That's right. That's right.
He's like, my owner calls me a good boy, but I could be a
Wait.
bad boy.
Can we just look at Steve McQueen's face right here too? He's like, oh shucks,
Yeah.
oh shucks,
Oh gosh.
look at that pup you got there. He's so country boy, like small town country boy.
All right, so the nurse shows up at the doctor's
Oh
office.
yeah, she did. Look at that face. She's like, that doctor.
So she got
They're
called
having
in,
an affair. They're having an affair. Look at them.
but the poor woman was
Like in real
sleeping.
life, you mean?
I mean,
No, just as the doctor and the nurse, she's like, "You called
She was
me?
sleeping like that, Mike?
You
I think
called
so.
me?
She was because she knows she's on call. She always sleeps in her uniform. But
Well,
the
women
doctor,
back then we had to be
Yeah,
on
you had to
call
sleep
at all
with your hat.
times. You know,
That's
you had to
it.
have curlers in your hair at night. She had to be in full uniform with a cone bra.
she comes in though loyally. Poor woman.
So look at her face. She's like, "Well, hello, doctor."
So this is now.
That's what women were. That's
so
what
now the
women
doc.
were.
So
How
the
can I be of assistance, doctor?
Exactly. That's what women were back then. It was like
so the old timer is now on the bed, right? Is that
old timer.
that we're
Yep.
at? So old timer.
Well, actually, no, he's gone now. The blob ate him all up.
Oh yeah.
Well, right, but they don't know that. Oh my!
She goes to the bed to look at him, and he's
Nice
missing.
pants.
Yeah.
His pants are very high. Can we just note the
Yeah.
region of his crotch of his pants up until the belt line? That's
Well, they're designed like that. Imagine if he wore them how, a lot of people normally wear their
luxurious.
pants.
that's like the kids nowadays are all wearing mom jeans.
Yeah.
He was wearing mom
Scary.
pants. Mom pants. And a very long tie.
And this is what they found in Steve McQueen's colonoscopy.
FAP.
And it was benign.
This
Unbelievable.
do you believe this is a miniature here?
No, this is a actual silicone thing.
Yeah, that's gotta
Yeah.
be.
Oh, you mean the scene? You mean the set? The
I
set
didn't
of
know.
miniature? It could be. I don't really know. They do use miniatures in the movie.
I don't feel like that one was a
No, it wouldn't be too hard to make a big
No,
blob and just sit
yeah.
it there.
That's a lot, though. Like a lot of silicone to make. I feel like if you were making a movie, you wouldn't want to make that. Like if you could have the option of miniatures and stuff,
Plus, I wonder what the cost of silicone was back then.
very expensive.
Silicone now it's expensive. So
So yeah, now that you mention it in this picture, like what is his waistline on his pants is like what
That's
2 or
what I'm
3
saying.
inches from his
It's like
chest?
right below
like
his
his
nipples.
tie is
He's
like
chafing his nipples
Yeah.
on his belt loops.
his pant
Well,
line.
look,
his
you
belt-
need
his
a lot of
belt line-
you need a lot of pocket depth to hold all
No.
the hard candy. You know?
His belt line is halfway on his tie line, so his tie
Those
is
Werther's originals will get you every time.
time.
I feel this is also a cool shot because they cut the frame of it, and it's like a different color.
Yeah, it almost that's funny. It almost looks like a split screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think was their idea, right? But it's almost like you can't tell what I was a little confused with this shot, right? Because they do this, and it feels like she could just. I mean, how close is it to her? Like
It's right. It looks like it's right by the door
right. She
frame
could
on
have
the
like
other
just
side.
been
So,
around, and they both could have ran out.
I feel like
yeah.
Hold on, I'm going to get my gun.
Yeah, he leaves her alone.
Right? Do you have that
Yeah.
next?
Yeah,
the
that
next,
comes up after she throws the acid on it, though.
Oh,
so
that's
he's like-
right. That's right.
He's like, oh, that's right. He doesn't tell her, hey, run around to me so we can get the hell out of this place. He says, grab the acid that's sitting up there, woman, and throw it at the monster that came.
And make sure you get none of it on you.
This is my honestly, this is my favorite part of the movie because she throws the acid on it. It does nothing, right? It like sizzles or whatever. And she's like,
Yeah, like this.
nothing can kill it. Like you tried one thing. You
We're
didn't try multiple
doomed.
things. You did one.
we have to give up. The world is over. The best.
Now, one question I had in this scene: does anyone know if this movie ever had some kind of like 3D version to it?
I don't think so, but yeah,
but they
that kind of
Kevin
stuff did
Dillon.
start around this time. That was like a what's the word? Like a
I think the
Bad or
70s
whatever.
version did.
this
There was
movie
Beware the Blob.
that was that in 3D.
I believe they released that in 3D. Yeah, that was in the 70s.
This movie was an influence on William Castle, which William Castle had a big influence on like all those like fads that happened in movies. Like he made the Tingler, where the seats were the actual seats in the theater were electrified, and he was inspired by the
Vincent
scene
Price.
in the theater scene in this movie to like start doing stuff like that. So
Yeah, I just kept thinking like when she throws the acid, I'm like, that
would be a perfect 3D scene. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be a
it's
perfect
it's a
3D.
3D movie
Yeah.
technique.
I don't think they would have had the budget to do something like that. This movie was made for like $100,000 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
Can we
very low budget.
Still,
They didn't
just
have.
note that not only that, he just left the nurse in the room
Yeah.
to try to fend off this alien blob.
The one he just shook from her sleep,
Wow.
He's like,
made
"Nurse,
her drive in.
Well, he
nurse,
went and he's
grab
like,
grab
I'm gonna
that
get my
vial of
gun."
acid. I have to tamp my pipe down."
Yeah, I'll be right back. Let's see how you fare.
I just
in
want to
this.
see what happens.
Yeah. And
Hello,
then,
nurse. I need some cannon fodder. Would you come in, please?
well, I came in for a simple amputation, and now I'm.
I want to escape alive. We're going to use you as
So-
bait.
I want you to go and grab a vial of acid over there. I'm gonna go get my shotgun.
Yeah.
All right? Just to show you where you stand.
So she freaks out. She's
Okay,
like
okay, yes,
apparently
sir. Yes, sir.
helpless. Yeah.
Yes,
And
sir, yes,
he gets
sir.
his shotgun and he shoots it, which is like, why would you think that would do anything to a giant blob of jello? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it obviously doesn't work.
No, but the thing is, she screams, and somehow all the lights in the entire building
Oh
go
yeah,
out.
because she like knocks over a lamp or
Yeah.
something.
Every
Yeah.
time someone is scared, they fall over in this like erratic.
There's a funny scene where Jane falls down into a stack of soup cans or something later on in the supermarket
in the
too,
supermarket.
which is a funny scene.
Classic woman.
So here he takes up his shotgun and he shoots it, but obviously it doesn't do anything. And Steve and Jane pull up, which is a funny scene because Steve goes up to the door, knocks on it, and he's looking for the doctor to see what happened. It appears that like no one is there anymore, and he sees like the doctor get eaten by the blob. But I feel like they could have done the scene so much better. Like you do see it like between the Venetian blinds a little bit, but it's not very clear what's going on. Like the first time I saw this movie, I didn't realize what we were looking at here until he says to her later on that the blob ate him or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even the shades might fall at one point, but it was so poorly done. I think they were just trying to obscure it. They didn't
Well,
want
that was
it
the
to
thing.
look
Yeah, it was like
horrible.
that. That's the less you show of the monster, the more scary it is, right?
Mhm.
That kind of thing. But
Also, I think that like to get certain ratings back then, they couldn't have like super violent.
yeah,
deaths.
it couldn't be
That's
that.
what they had to do.
And the tastes of audiences back then were less. They were less tolerable of that type of thing, right?
Mhm.
So
Like this would have been terrifying to them anyway, you know. But
apparently your father
really,
found it terrifying enough the way it
like
is
I
that it
said,
was. So
he was really young. He said
yeah.
it was unheard. I mean, we talked about them too, like with the ants and stuff, and even though us watching that now, it's like, oh, whatever. But this, he was like, it was just that was terrifying to know that it had just killed the doctor, killed the,
My father, I have a story that's kind of like that too. My father apparently felt the same way about The Thing from Another World. He said that he saw it in the theater too, and he had nightmares for weeks afterward.
And it's funny because reviewing that, before we did The Thing, it's so not scary.
But great. It's
It's a wonderful movie. Yeah, wonderful.
But definitely,
I can imagine though, in those times, having not been desensitized as we've been. I mean, we grew up in a time where we saw horror at its pinnacle,
right, like much more gore and actual, horror.
Yeah, they allow it now. Back then, people just didn't want to see that. They were frightened. They didn't know if, they didn't really disseminate between the reality of it, I think. And, like you said, your dad running home thinking, oh, the blob's out here with me,
Right.
I remember doing that as a kid too, watching like Friday the 13th up at my aunt's camp in the middle of the Adirondacks. And then I got to walk from one cabin to another by myself. That I can move when I need to.
It's even like, I mean, it's every generation I feel like has had these kind of movies where that's the thing, Even my little brother wouldn't go upstairs by himself. He's significantly younger than me, but he wouldn't go upstairs by himself till he was 13 in my parents' house because when he was like 4 or 5, we let him watch the Scream movies because we were like teenagers and we were like, yeah, well, this is what we want to watch, and mom and dad are making us babysit. But also, Chris, your dad once told me about a movie. It's like I'm not gonna do it. I don't know. Go to Hulu. You'll find it on there. Like,
What is it?
I had.
That's an inside joke, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't help it.
All right, so he sees Steve McQueen Steve in the movie sees this happen, and he freaks out and runs back to the car to tell Jane what happened. And they rush to the police department to tell them what happened. So finally the authorities are involved, right? And this is the scene where I think this is Officer Dave, where he's trying to like staple something and he's out of staples, so he goes to look in the one of the other officers' drawers, and he comes out with apparently he's been playing chess with one of the other officers through the what is it called, the radio or whatever.
Radio, yeah.
Yeah.
Later on, he
well, you got to do something.
He tells him that, he makes the move and he goes, oh man.
It's funny because
he knows he got checkmate.
That scene. I thank you for bearing with me here, but I do have the position set up here that he was playing. If you just bear with me while I bring it up.
We're gonna have the actual chess position of the. Is he losing, or where is he at?
He's losing, but it's not checkmate. So again, this reminds me of the scene in The Thing. I think that scene in The Thing might have been a callback to this, the chess scene in John Carpenter's The Thing. Where like one of our sort of heroes is playing a chess game and loses, right? So he's human, right? He's flawed and whatever. So anyway, this is the position. The officer, I forget what his name. What is that officer's name in the movie?
Jim?
Jim is the mean. Is the
No.
one that like says that the kids are no good all the time.
Let me see. Lieutenant Dave.
Kids are no good most of the time.
Jim Burt. Officer Richie. So
Richie.
This is Officer Richie playing the game. So he's playing black, and the other person on the other end of the radio is playing white, and they start in a slightly different position. The queen is back here on its starting square for black, and I don't know where the knight supposedly is, because if you look in the movie, when he takes the the chessboard out of the drawer, it's already in this position. So obviously they weren't really thinking about it. But anyway, the two moves that they make are first Richie moves queen to king 2. So that the queen moves from this square to this square, and then the other guy says he wants to move the king's knight to king's bishop 5, which is this knight over here. So this is the position that he ends up in. And I think maybe the reason that he makes the face is because his queen is under attack.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
And white is definitely better here. He has more. His pieces are more active. And there's some tactical stuff yeah.
No, yeah.
I just want to say something, Chris.
Yeah.
This has gotten to the nerd point.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
In the conversation where I think.
Or just bear with me. Just bear with me. But anyway, all he would have to do is take the knight with the bishop here, and it's not checkmate is my point. So
I think you should send an email to Steve McQueen to let him know that.
A strongly worded letter.
He definitely should take his queen, though. I will say that.
But he should inform the police.
It's not his turn now.
Oh, it wasn't his turn.
The white already moved, so it's actually sorry, just to bring it back up. White already moved the knight over here. So it's black's turn to move. So he's not going to lose the queen because you could just take with the bishop.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing that now. Okay.
Anyway, thanks for hearing me.
Does he post a triple word score? Or... Oh wait, no. Wrong game. Scrabble's my jam.
Oops. Oh, why did it start all the way back at the beginning?
What have you done?
It's because you touch yourself at night, Chris.
The man Jesus has punished you.
So there's your chess. That's interesting. You pulled that whole setup, huh?
Yeah, because we did pay attention to that part when we were watching it too. Though,
yeah, it's an interesting setup too. Like it's such a main part of that scene, like to be put in there, but there's no like follow up on the chess game later.
We don't find out
movie.
who wins or
it's
anything.
I think it's like a bit of characterization, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, they do spend a little bit of time giving some characterization to the players. So
Can we also, once again, looking at this picture right here, note that the cops are like the same age as the teenagers.
Yeah.
They were in
Like,
wood
they're
shop
all
together.
like the same age. Like they're like, you young hoodlums, and it's like, yeah, but yeah.
So this is the scene where they come to tell, like, I think you were mentioning the scene before, right, Pat? Where they're like, it's a monster.
Yeah.
You're driving backwards and now monsters.
Yeah, that's what he says. He's like, first you're driving backwards now. Yeah.
And Jim, the officer Jim, is like, you kids. You
ruffians.
Crazy.
You can tell by his face here. You kids.
How much wider the top of his head is than the bottom of
Very like Dudley Do Right kind of face. Just wah, wah.
It's like he got stuck in a turtleneck for like a week.
What was it? The Andy Griffith.
Too high on his head.
Who was it? The Andy Griffith show. What's his name?
Barney Fife?
Yes.
Speaking about the Andy
Barney
Griffith
Fife
show,
face.
I believe that the actress that is in this movie that plays Jane was in the Andy Griffith show, I think.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
He just has a very Barney Fife face right there. Like, well, gee whiz, man.
He also kind of looks like, if you can in editing put this Zoolander, what's his face?
Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell.
When he's playing Mugatu.
He's so hot right now.
And the guy in the background just like, whoa.
Relax, don't
Look,
do
also
it.
calendar on the background. I wonder if that has some sort of meaning. 1957.
No, it's just it was when they filmed the movie, that was the calendar that it was 1957. It's funny because he actually does mention the calendar in the commentary.
Oh, does he?
Does he really?
Yeah. He said he was upset that the calendar was actually in the shot because he didn't want to put a time period to the movie. But they have that calendar in the background and the
As if
polio
special
thing.
effects didn't do that automatically.
This is the chest position that I was just talking about, which I won't bore you guys with any further. I love the picture of the doctor's house here.
Right, Ken was going to say something there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ken. Yeah.
No, I was just I was trying to think. You just sidelined me with Zoolander there. Two things. First, you sidelined me with Zoolander because I thought that the cop in the front was definitely doing a good Blue Steel. So I think there's that. And then also polio, I looked it up. I believe the first successful test of a polio vaccine was in 1950.
1950. Okay.
So they had just started doing it.
It was fresh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a brand new thing. So and it's interesting how how the time fits into it, and also there's a part that comes up later on when they're alerting all the townspeople. And there's this one particular scene. I don't know if you have it in the slide, but when that time comes up, I'll review it because it has a lot to do again with the time that it was in and what probably a lot of these people had been involved in, historically, and it kind of came through. But we'll move on to that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay. So I just wanted to stop on the shot of the doctor's house because I think it's so spooky looking.
That's an awesome
I think
house.
this looks like it's a matte painting or something. I think, right?
Looks like the monster's house.
Yeah, it does, right? It looks like a haunted house or something.
Yeah, that Gothic architecture. Well, it's Victorian, I guess. I don't know what period it would be. Probably Victorian.
So they pull up at the doctor's to see, what the hell Steve is on about. And they go into the doctor's house. And this is an interesting scene because there's a 2 or 3 minute span where everybody's just walking around in darkness. Like you can't even see their faces and stuff, which is, that's not usually how things are lighted.
The one woman starts trying to clean things up or whatever.
She shows up in a
yeah.
And they're like, no, you can't because there might be fingerprints and she's like, I just need to clean.
Yeah.
Again.
I'll dust around the fingerprints.
Right? Yeah, she does say that.
Again,
I love her nightgown that she's into. I have a picture of her, which I'll get to in a second.
Very much a woman in the 50s.
They turn the fuse box back on, I guess, and they start investigating. They see that the lamp was knocked over.
Her hat on the floor there.
And he states that he thinks that may be what tripped the fuse in the first place, that the lamp fell.
Right. And they have to so the door that the doctor went into his office was locked from the inside. So they tell Jim to go around and break the window on the other side and come in, and he unlocks the door. And
wouldn't it have been easier to kick the door in?
Maybe.
Yeah.
By the way, you should probably say, by the way, because we're getting to spoiler alerts, I guess, right? So if anyone's watching that hasn't seen this movie, maybe now would be a time, maybe.
No, that's true. I mean, it was only released in 1958. So.
Can we also note though, that scary movies like this have, in all honesty, when it comes to cops in every scary movie, even to today, nowadays, they always have made them very like people come and tell them this is happening, it's crazy, and they're like, yeah,
they never believe them, right?
They never and even you gotta now it's 60 70 years later, and people are still the cops in scary movies are still you crazy nut jobs,
you crazy kids,
until they're dead. But it's not changed.
And when they die, it's always I had 4 days left till retirement.
Even back then, to this day, cops are just portrayed as, they're gonna tell me that something's happening, there's a killer or there's a monster, and they're gonna be like, oh, you crazy kids, and then it's just, apparently the whole trope of scary movies has not changed in 70 years.
So anyway, here's the lady you were talking about, and I love her nightgown with the polka dots on it.
The hair curlers, I told you, the hair curlers.
Yeah, and the hair curlers.
got the
she was
matching
charged
shirt.
with watching over the house while
Yeah,
the doctor
yeah.
was away.
He calls her like in an earlier scene, and she's like, "Who threw all this stuff all over the floor?"
Oh, my lantern.
Where's the beef?
Let me make you nice children a glass of hot milk.
No, it was Ovaltine. Ovaltine.
Ovaltine.
Let me get you some Ovaltine.
Look how smart. She's got the matching pajama shirt and the
That's how you know she was classy. She was definitely classy.
and I just wanted this scene because I wanted to get a shot of Steve McQueen's head next to the deer head hanging on the wall.
Is that a deer? What the hell?
I don't know
looks
what
like
it
a
is.
deer tapir hybrid.
I don't know what it is.
It looks like Satan. It looks
Yeah.
like
It's, a,
goat Satan on the wall.
it's an elephant seal with
Like an
horns jabbed in its head.
anteater mixed with a deer.
And you see his shoulders are always like up. You notice his shoulders are always like.
Hey there, Mr. Goat. Say hello to your mom for me. And then there's this scene with the mechanics.
That was a great scene too, by the way.
Yeah, where they just drag.
You know what
his feet just drag underneath.
I thought about in this scene was when he's under it and he leaves, right? The other guy leaves.
And he
Right.
keeps talking.
Yeah, he keeps
Thinking
talking.
he's there.
Is that a voiceover that was done, you think? Or do you think they actually had a microphone like under the car with him? What do you think, Ken?
Oh, come on! There was no way they had a mic under that car, and you could get that voice working like that. I mean, it was way too clean, especially with how acoustics would have been back then. If they had a microphone under the car, that would have been like really horrible sounding. But I think what's even better about it is how the guy working under the car is telling the other mechanic about like how he hates his wife so much he's gonna go off into the woods and get shit-faced drunk just because. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. You're okay.
He's just like, I'm just gonna go out. I'm so blind.
Yeah.
See, so if you ever decide to talk about me like that, you're gonna get dragged under a car by a blob. Just know it.
And
Just know
I
it.
love. I just thought, I was just like, oh, come on. Like, you're really, it's really that, your relationship is that bad. You're like, hey, look, I'm not even going to bring a bottle of liquor home. I'm just going to go off into the woods.
What was fun
Sit
about
on a
it though, too,
stump.
because he's talking about all that, but then the other guy just walks out mid sentence and just like starts
Right.
packing
He
up.
knows. He's like,
No, and the other guy just keeps talking as if nothing had happened there.
This guy.
Like I
again.
felt like the acting was so terrible that it had to be a voiceover that wasn't timed appropriately to like what was going on, because he's just like walking out the door and he's mid-sentence or whatever, and it's kind of set up to be like, oh, he's not really, paying attention because he's
Right.
under the car or whatever. But
No, that guy just loves his wife. And
he's like, oh, screw this.
and he's like, I'm not gonna listen to this
My
guy
wife is a
badmouth his
saint.
wife. I'm gonna go home to my wife. and
I
let him-
won't let you
and let him
poison
get
my
eaten.
soul.
Let him get eaten by the blob. See, you ever badmouth me, the blob will get you.
I'd welcome the sweet release of death.
That's the moral of the story.
well, that's the thing, right? I mean, they have to make him a jerk so that when he gets eaten by the blob, you don't care
Right.
because that's what happens, right?
Right? Isn't that everybody who has either said something bad about somebody else or had sex or done something illegal from 1970 to 1985
Oh, yeah.
automatically gets
Every
serial murder?
Friday the 13th movie is just purely based on
To this
if you
day-
have sex, you're going to die.
Yeah. To this day, that's the horror movie trope. If you're a virgin, you're safe. If you give it up, your ass is dead. Right, Chris? We're late enough in the episode. I can swear, right?
Thankfully, I'm safe, guys.
Me too. I have a kid, but it was immaculate conceptions.
All right, so he gets eaten and the legs get pulled under the car.
So good. So good. Hold under.
And then this is the scene where he's like, I called your parents.
But can we just note again that Steve McQueen looks older than the cop?
Yeah, because
Huh?
but also
Look
bring
older
the
than the
parents in. Did you take a screenshot of the parents? when the
Yeah,
parents
yeah, I
were
have
still
them.
up?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for him to be charged with statutory rape. Like,
Right?
really?
Like, come on now.
Come
Steve
on.
McQueen looks older than his father in this scene. You know?
It's just the fact that the cops look younger than it's just
That was played by Jeb McQueen, his younger brother.
Then and also, what I realize at this point too, you have these, teenagers that have been running all around town for the past maybe 15, 16 hours,
Mhm.
from like maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night to like 3 or 4 in the morning,
Oh, yeah.
right? With the cops and doctors telling them to go on missions and stuff, and they first bring the parents in.
Yeah.
The first time they ever thought about calling the parents. Oh, well, we've been having these kids basically be deputized for the past day and a half.
Go explore this deadly thing that's going on. Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
an alien rock landed. Oh, go! Why don't you go and grab it for us?
I want
We'll
you.
call
I
your
want
parents
you.
tomorrow.
I want you kids to go get a sample for us and do some
I gotta-
analysis in the lab.
I gotta finish my chess game.
Yeah. I also like how disheveled Steve's dad is here. It's
Yeah.
like he stumbles in from a bar and he's like, "What did my son do now?"
There's like a safety pin holding his jacket together. The button. Like, there's no
And now,
button.
isn't it?
There's no
isn't
button
it
there.
her? And isn't it her dad is the principal of their
Yes.
school,
Right.
and
Yeah.
his dad owns like a hardware store or something?
Or I think he owns the supermarket.
Oh, you're in the supermarket? Okay.
I think
right.
that's what they say. Yeah.
Because I thought that was because I think, and that was the thing too, wasn't it? That she was very, very worried about them calling her dad because and then the news will get out all over town, and I
Right.
guess, like,
Yeah. And he's the principal.
I guess he's
Yeah.
a delinquent daughter.
Yeah.
She does look very delinquent. Look at her. She just.
Oh yeah. Oh my. Oh, yeah.
She looks like a disappointment. She just looks like a disappointment.
He's just a loose cannon.
I can't even.
And here they are.
Wait. I just want to say something. In this, you just took a screenshot. Does Steve McQueen have a wedding ring on?
Oh, it does look like it, doesn't it?
Wait a minute.
Did he forget to take his wedding ring
He
off?
does. I think he does.
Yeah. I think he
I
does.
think he
Yeah.
does.
Can we, Ken?
Look,
do you have
now,
the ability
but
to look something up right now?
Can we now
Can you
just
look up and see if he was married?
Can we now just Jane this picture
Yes,
though?
that
Jane
would be
looking at him right
wonderful.
now, and he's hiding his ring behind it. She's like,
Yeah.
"I thought you told me you were single." And both dads are like,
My only
Yeah.
true love is the Blob.
both dads are like,
She
"Come on."
knows what I like.
They're all just judging him.
Because it's on his left hand too.
Yeah,
That's why they're
That
all
looks like-
looking at him like that. They're like, "Aren't you married?"
that looks like it. Right, that looks
Like,
like a
what-
wedding band.
What are
The
you
one-
doing in this
and
He
then
movie?
the one
was,
cop
he was
that was
married to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
No, go
Ken.
ahead.
1956
Oh shit! So he was
to a
married.
woman
That's his-
Neely Adams,
Right.
and then he married Ally McGraw in 1973.
Well, I knew Ally McGraw in the 70s. I remember him marrying her, but
Yeah,
that is definitely a
19
wedding ring.
Right?
1956, man.
He didn't even try.
That's
to
a good
conceal that
catch,
from the
Pat.
movie.
I didn't even
So-
notice that.
This picture is her being like,
When I pick
thought
up
you said
guys, I
you're-
always
Ah,
Oh,
now I
I
see.
take a
Yeah,
look. And
that makes sense.
she's like,
You gotta
I thought
check
you
to
said
see
you
for
weren't
the ring.
married, and both of the dads are looking like, what do you got to say for yourself, son? And the cop, though, to the left is just like, doop da doop da doop da doop.
He's like wiping dust off the wooden slat.
All cops in these movies. are
Pledge.
just, a dirty, dirty.
He's like, "You're 17.
Nothing.
How have you been married for 14 years?
Yeah.
Why is
He's
this
on it.
your silver wedding anniversary?"
He's on his third wife by this point.
He has a silver bush.
No continuity. Even the ring in the scene.
So I just noticed the reflection of.
I know, that's good.
No, that's a good catch. I didn't. Oh, and there's the polio thing in the background.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Wow.
Promoting polio.
Yeah.
Wait,
Try polio.
waiting for an iron lung to show up.
So
That
what
was
are they
funny.
doing in this scene? I forget. I think
Quite the close up.
Right? His mother must be so proud.
Hmm.
He's got like so many facial
Yeah, from chicken pox.
Yeah, I was wondering
Yeah.
when I was watching
Yeah.
it.
I thought it was like
was
a
it acne or
a scar or something.
some
I don't
sort
know.
of pox? Back then they had like rubella and stuff too. So
Yeah.
who knows? It could have been from that too.
Smallpox and stuff.
Wait,
Yeah.
again, can we Andy Griffith? Doesn't he kind of look like a young Andy Griffith?
He does.
He does look like Andy Griffith.
And we just does it not? Oh my god!
They probably
He does.
So we got Barney
that
Fife. We
purposefully.
got Barney Fife and Andy Griffith in the same movie. My day is made. I'm out, guys. That's it. I can't.
Who is he calling in this scene? I don't remember.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
Ah.
definitely Ghostbusters. 100% Ghostbusters.
I think he's trying to call the doctor.
Nah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. He's calling. They're trying to figure out where the doctor is. That's right.
I wonder what the little pin on his collar means too.
You know, now that I said the word Ghostbusters, the sequel to Ghostbusters dealt with a blob as well.
That's true. Yeah.
Ectoplasm.
Why am I covered with goo?
Yep. The happy ectoplasm.
Mhm.
I think those buttons are like he's a lieutenant or something.
Yeah, I
right?
think it's a rank insignia. Yeah.
Like captain is like 2, lieutenant's 1. Something
Yeah.
like that.
His face. I just can't.
All right.
this-
So now,
Yeah. Go ahead.
first, look at her hair.
Yeah, see, it is. You're right. Different length.
Isn't it? It's a little bit long. It's a little because before in the first scenes, it didn't even really get past her collar,
Huh.
and now it's on the top
Maybe
of her back.
maybe it took a while for them to film this. Does
And I
anyone know
feel
the
like-
duration?
Right. I
or-
feel like it probably took a while, and the continuity just wasn't something that they really.
Yeah, I think they shot it over like the course of a month or something. But it may be that maybe they, how in movies like they shoot things out of
Reshoots,
order.
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
They couldn't afford a hairstylist,
Just
But
mat
this
it
is
down
this
with
is
a
the scene
hairband.
where we're introduced to Jane's little brother.
The star of the entire movie. The star
This
of
And
poor
the entire
kid.
movie.
And the most horror-ridden part of it is that doll. That
Right?
Yeah.
And
Those
this
bits-
dead stare that he gives
Right.
at one point in this scene.
Oh,
He gives
boy.
this stare
Oh,
as if his
boy,
eyes
Jane.
are rolling into the back of his head.
who's a kid.
Yeah,
It is.
it's creepy.
I wish we could have a clip. I wish we had a clip right now of just him talking right here because
Yeah.
it's so like.
I still have nightmares
Oh
about
boy,
that. There.
Jane.
Yeah,
Oh."
he's too old to be talking
I
the
just
way
wanna-
he is.
He really
I-
is. Like,
I
he's-
want to just
Kid's like 16.
for a second to go back to Bill Warren's book. In his review of this movie, I just want to read like his statement about the actor that played about the kid in this scene.
Mhm.
He says, on the other hand, Keith Almoni, which is the actual actor's name, as Jane's kid brother, is one of the most unpleasant child actors of the 50s.
That's awesome. He wasn't
And so
pretty
what-
bad.
And what made me wonder about his acting in this scene, well, in this movie, was he putting on that affect of how he spoke, or that's really how he spoke?
No, I think that's really how he spoke. This kid he wasn't a child actor. He was just like the son of like one of the
Right.
crew members.
I
So
think somebody
okay.
told him, "Hey, like here, you're gonna go do this, and it's gonna make you famous," because they wanted like their kid to be in this, and
Yeah.
just do it like this. That's what it feels like. It's like it was just some kid whose parents said, just do it, it'll be fine. Just say this and just do it." And the kid's just like, "Oh, gee willikers!"
At least he
No,
got
and then-
offered a puppy, though. You know,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he's
I
like,
like the
I don't
demonic
like
stare.
I don't like the name William.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
When
Where
he
it
got
was
to
like,
the
can I
landing.
name it William? Can I name it William? Sure, you can name it William. I don't like William.
Like, what are you trying to pull?
It's amazing we haven't seen him in movies after this. You know that he didn't have a major career after
Yeah, he
this.
had
Leonardo
such star
DiCaprio.
material.
Yeah.
Leonardo.
I would have given him 5 across the eyes and sent him to sleep.
No, I mean I feel bad. He's just a little kid doing what but yeah, he's not
Anymore.
exactly
He's
the best.
much
singer.
older than you, Chris.
He
Screw him.
Thank you.
resembles a young Charlie Bucket in the original.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
He's an old timer now.
But Jane, Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I
There we
don't like the name William.
I
This
don't
kid-
like William.
I wanted to, while watching this movie, I wanted to hit this child on multiple occasions. And I don't condone hitting children, but like there were multiple occasions where I was like, can somebody just hit him and shut him up? Can they
Just give him a Buddha palm to the solar plex. Like,
shut this kid up?
Just hope his pajama bottoms slid under his foot in the right way as he was going down
He
the
just
stairs.
tumbled down the stairs.
Oh my God! You banged your head on every stair along the.
We'll bury him with William.
oh my God.
Oh no,
I think
he's
one thing
breathing.
you got to say, how awesome is that wallpaper?
Oh, the
yeah.
wallpaper is great. Yeah.
Well, wallpaper
Very
they
cool.
should bring back. Wallpaper I can get back.
I know. I always dug wallpaper. My grandmother had an old house when I was young. Every room was wallpapered. And yeah, they just
Of
why'd they
course.
stop doing wallpaper?
And again, I just want to point out, I love the color schemes here too. Even like his like teal sleeping outfit, like with the purple in the background. I just think the color choices are so.
Yeah, it's very pastel looking.
Yeah.
You know, it
I
has that-
agree. I think whether they had a low budget and this was not supposed to be some high budget movie, they really the colors that they used in every scene do seem very deliberate. Somewhat, maybe it wasn't, and they just got lucky. But
Oh no, I think it was
Well,
deliberate because they chose
seems
to
deliberate,
film it in color. So
Right.
yeah.
Let's do this, Chris. Do you have let's cut to some climax scenes here, right? Right. Oh, this is a good one too, though.
that bed,
is where
I want that bed. I want that bed.
Yeah,
This is
jump-
where he sneaks out the window.
That he's like a 40-year-old man who's
Yeah.
sleeping in a tiny bed in his parents' house. Yes, like, please tell me, go back. Can you just go back to the bed? Can you just tell me that's not a 40-year-old man still living with his parents, sleeping in his childhood bed? Tell me that's not that right there.
He's
Yeah.
also fully dressed
Ugh.
because when he gets out of bed, the only thing he does is
Well,
put
because
on the shoes, right?
he tells Jane, like, when they're leaving the police station, he says, "Meet me, after
Yeah.
after we go home, meet me outside my house." So he was planning on sneaking out anyway, which he does.
Can't be on camera, no.
No, I think he says he'll be there or something like, "Oh, I'll be at your house" or
Yeah,
something.
because she scares him. He turns around and he's like, "You scared the bejesus out of me," or whatever the hell he says.
The guy didn't even have time to put on a belt.
But she
Okay,
didn't
and
make-
now
didn't
and
make
this is
any-
the scene I was talking about. Look at her hair in this scene.
Right, it's very long.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right?
Oh, yeah, it's
it has
definitely longer,
changed
yeah,
throughout the movie.
yeah.
Also, can we also note again that her facial expression has not changed yet? Still the same facial expression. So
Super
her
glued
hair
in
has
place.
changed, but her face has not the entire movie. It's always the same. What? What?
Like,
So I think what you're saying is that her hair is a better actor than she is.
100%.
Very
Ani-
dynamic.
Anita,
Very dynamic.
we'd like you to start on this this pill called lithium for the film. We think it'll help with your acting.
So, like you said, this is a small town, and some of these are like just actors that were around there. So she
Yeah,
was probably
yeah.
just like, "Oh my god, I get to be in a movie with Steve McQueen." Like
She
back
was,
then,
I think she
Steve
was like
McQueen in the 50s, are you kidding me?
a stage actor or something.
Still now, if I go back to the 50s, I'd have banged one out with Steve McQueen. Sorry, but
Banged one out.
I'd have banged one out with Steve McQueen.
There's this
Okay.
this kind of interesting scene too at when they sneak out and like Steve McQueen is like he's like yesterday or something, right? Like he's like if I will only we could go back to not knowing that this weird creature is gonna kill everybody in town, and he starts talking about UFOs and things like that.
All
Willfully.
my troubles seem so
Yeah.
far away.
And
We'll
it's
probably
weird.
get hit for that. Watch.
He has like all these
Willful ignorance. No, you're good. You didn't sing enough of it for it. to be
Okay.
It also wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
In addition,
I have headphones on. The pitch is off. I don't know.
Ooh, look at that shirt too. I want to dress like her. I want that to come back. I want that to be outfits.
I also appreciate how quiet the garage door was when he opened it. I don't know if it's one of those manual doors. I don't know if you ever opened one of those fucking things.
Yeah, they're heavy.
Pardon my French.
Frickin'.
Friggin'
Word,
once, but
yeah.
they weigh like 7,000 pounds.
Yeah, they're
Open
heavy.
up a manual garage door,
Yeah.
but it's loud. That's not a quiet thing to do.
But also, can we just like look at what girls used to wear too? And he's like saving her from some alien species and running around town and like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? If he's trying to eventually get with her, like that's what they had to go through.
What do you mean? Like going steady?
Yeah, sure.
All he had to do was, save the whole town from an alien race and
Right.
have these fancy cars and stuff.
That's what I'm saying. That's what more
Straightforward.
women. Listen. Can I just women nowadays? Can you just start making men have to save entire towns for you before you just give it?
And wear
Man,
poodle skirts and
such a high bar.
Make them work for it. Make them work for it a little bit.
I love both
love
of these
being
cars
single.
in this garage.
Yeah, what's
Yeah,
the other
they're-
car there?
I don't know, but it looks cool from the back.
Cadillac?
Yeah.
Is that a Pontiac, maybe?
Or maybe a Pontiac.
Do you want me to get close to the screen, our big ass screen in front of us right now, so I can tell you what it is?
I don't know if it'll.
The other one's a Buick. Hold up.
It's a V shape with a.
Is it a Buick or a Cadillac?
Might be a Cadillac.
That might be. I'm just looking at the V
I
shape.
feel like
We're only
that's
seeing
the-
like one half of the V. So there's another,
Whistler, maybe?
No, it's the one. Whatever has the on the car to the left. It's the it used to have. So it has the laureate leaves. You know what I'm talking about? Around the outside. What is that?
Around the
I
outside.
don't know.
The outside.
It's not what they use anymore, but it's the.
Don't
Might have
listen.
been Cadillac.
She's a woman. Don't listen to her. Just
Cadillac
go on
is
to
like
the
a
next-
Just because we're watching a
Oh,
50s movie.
If we've learned anything from this movie.
Well, it's a Buick. The blue one's a
It's-
Buick, but the one to the left,
Yeah.
it's got the laureate leaves. I don't know what that would have been though. Back
No, I know
then.
what you're talking about, though.
Right? Like, remember, it's a car that's still around now, but a brand that's still around now. But I don't know. We'll have to look up laureate leaves. Car with a emblem that has laureate leaves.
I do like this, though. They push the car out.
Yeah, he puts it in neutral and they push the car outside.
And I like that the coloring that they put her outfit in matches like kind of the car. So all the
This is your favorite
coloring-
scene, Ken.
healthfully air conditioned.
Hopefully,
Yeah, I like how you picked up on that too. But back in the day, the movies were the place to go because they were one of the few places that had air conditioning.
But I told him when we watched it, I was like, "Why healthfully air conditioned?"
Because it was considered like a healthy place, like when the
But was
cooler
there
air
unhealthy?
Could
air
overheat.
conditioning? This is healthfully air conditioned. Was there unhealthily air
inha-
conditioned?
inhaling pure.
I think
cooler.
lack of air conditioning is unhealthily air conditioning.
Alright.
Yeah, I think that's what they're getting out
And
there.
would
it
midnight
could have just very been all of the asbestos they would just pump into the air conditioning.
They just pump.
Oh, it's healthy.
asbestos
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, back then they had like
Because it's
commercials
specialty
where
food.
like doctors were recommending that you smoke Marlboro Lights. Or,
Yeah.
True. For
They
a
used to
sore
toss
throat,
the popcorn in
add
asbestos.
some menthol
Yeah.
to your normal.
And then sad aside to that, that's what Steve McQueen died of.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
Mesothelioma?
I also would like
Mesothelioma from asbestos
Really?
exposure.
Imagine
Yeah.
it was from filming one of these scenes. My God. That's
Chris,
horrible.
don't go off this screen because I also would like to look into. I like that I laughed when we watched this that it says Midnight Spook Show, but
Uh,
Daughter of Horror.
Yeah.
Also
Daughter of Horror is an
Bella-
actual movie.
Right, I
Bella,
know that. but
the
also
other
Bella
movie
Lugosi.
is The Vampire and the Robot, which is not the actual name of the movie. It was actually released later in a different name. I think it was called My Son the Vampire.
But
it was-
Bella Lugosi is
Yeah,
that?
with Bella Lugosi was in it.
Okay.
And Jack Harris owned the rights for both of those movies. Daughter of Horror, he put in this movie to like, promote it or whatever. And I have an interesting little tidbit to talk about with Daughter of Horror in a second. But The Vampire and the Robot was not actually released until 1967. But he also put it in this movie because he wanted to promote it because he was going to try to release it in theaters, shortly after this movie came out. But like I said, it ended up being released later on, and the title changed to My Son the Vampire.
Yeah, because I knew Daughter of Horror, but I was like the Bella Lugosi. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
what that-
They're from what I understand, both of the movies are terrible. So I think Bill Warren has something to say about that movie too. Let me see if I can find his.
Yeah, what's funny
Oh,
too.
here, this is what Bill Warren says about the Daughter of Horror. He says, in any event, the 1953 movie, some sources say 1955, is pretentious, impenetrable, boring, and ludicrous. It's all style and no content. And an interesting thing about the movie, when you see the scene where the guy is walking through the graveyard, and there's like an overdub of someone speaking, he's like, "I am the demon that yada yada yada."
Yep.
The person that's walking through the graveyard and doing the overdub is actually Ed McMahon.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and actually Johnny Carson would rib him sometimes on the show about this.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So just a funny tidbit about. So anyway,
and then he did the Publishers Clearinghouse.
And then he did that, yeah.
Well, what's funny about this too, so they go through all this, right, where he convinces them to come out of the movie theater or whatever, right? But at the end of it, they come outside and they're like, what's so important that you made us waste our 80 cents on this movie for
Oh man.
But also, wait.
What were movies when we were going to movies together?
We were free because we snuck in.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry. Go on, Allie. Yeah.
It didn't cost anything.
Can we also?
That's why I don't know how much they were.
That I can't honestly distinguish between who are like teenagers necking at a movie and who are like grown-ups.
Yeah, there's like an old guy in the background that's like, "Hey, shut up."
Right, but then he has like
he looks like Bevy's father.
Is that kid next to him his kid, or is that like
also
another...
every time I speak to my guy friends, I hold their abdomen like that in a comforting way.
It's true. I keep telling him it's inappropriate.
I need to make sure
anyway.
Gives him a little tickle.
They're under the full understanding that I'm comforting
their wives get very
abdomen.
angry. You see how she's like,
oh,
you're preventing hiccups.
This guy again.
It's a very friendly thing to do.
It's true. Holding in farts.
So here's the poster, actually, the vampire and the robot.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is also kind of funny. This the poster that's here is actually not the poster for the movie, The Vampire and the Robot. It's actually the poster for Forbidden Planet.
Yep, and I have that. I have that movie.
I have that.
I recognize that as soon
in my
as you showed
office.
that.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, Robbie the robot.
You guys getting that static too, or no?
No.
I also like this as more horrifying than Dracula.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi. So anyway, they lose their 80 cents.
The cone bras.
So
Can we
sad.
just talk about the cone
Yeah,
bras?
I think those things need to come up, make a comeback. Yeah.
The
pencil
bras,
skirts
the girls.
and
Not
cone
even
bras.
no, those are not pencil skirts.
Yeah,
those are
the-
line skirts. But anyway,
Oh, is that what they're?
the A-lines. But the bras they used to wear, like they were those cone like
Point you up.
right.
Perky. Perkadelic.
I couldn't do that. Just
You'll
not.
shoot your eye out, kid.
Exactly.
Someone else has a wedding ring. Look at that guy.
He doesn't. He has a pinky ring.
That's a
gotta-
pinky
You
ring.
have to kiss that. That's
No,
not.
Yeah, he's a
That's
tough
on his
Italian
Oh,
guy.
no, but
That's why he's
no,
wearing
the
pinky
guy
ring.
with the blue striped shirt
Yeah.
is
The
wearing a
wedding.
wedding ring.
Is he?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I don't think
God.
they really cared. They
These
didn't-
teenagers have all eloped.
They didn't make anybody.
Everyone's in their 40th
Like now-
anniversary. Let's make a movie, guys, and we'll all be teen.
We're celebrating Harold's 50th anniversary tonight.
Nowadays, they would
It's the
make
silver
people take them
anniversary.
off. You know, back in the day, apparently they just didn't care. Even the
Bill
main-
is retiring on Tuesday. Graduating from high school.
And now this girl with her hand on her hip, she's like, "You told me you weren't married."
So this is where the what's his name, Jim, comes back from his patrol or whatever, and he says he saw some goings on in the supermarket. And the kids say, I guess I didn't have a picture of when they make the phone call to the police department, but they try calling again to like warn them about the blob, and they decide that they're going to take things into their own hands, and they go around town warning people. And this guy's telling us that the British are coming.
Yeah, he says,
Paul
Revere's here.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Revere.
Yeah, this reminds me of like the Tate murders in the 60s.
Yeah.
Like going up to the mansion, like trying to warn them, and they're like, oh, don't worry about it. We're all gonna get murdered soon. They're on drugs or whatever. It's such a weird scene. There's so many like scenes that are just like, why did you keep that
Right,
in?
like
that
this didn't have
final
any.
edit?
This scene right here had like other
They had to
than
make time.
just to show that people weren't paying attention to what was happening. But other than that, this scene right here has zero relevance to the entire.
Yeah, I was
movie.
actually at that party.
It was just. Like, it was just showing. It was just. for
Was
the
that at
whole-
Lee's house?
That guy right there at the door is the definition of look, mom, in a movie.
That hairdo with the what is it called? The product that you
Oh,
put
that's
in your
Pomade.
pomade. Yeah,
Hard part.
Real cream.
yeah,
Real
Brill
cream.
cream. That's probably what it is, actually,
And
right?
his oversized suit. I'm just. We have to stop talking. I'm getting too hot and bothered. We have to stop.
So, and it's 1957, and for some reason, their house is decorated like a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, they have the
Yeah.
Chinese lantern.
Lantern
So
and the
exotic.
little. I think that's a lion down there. Like
Well,
a
Oh,
little-
it's jade
lion.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a J. Yeah, that's funny.
Little known fact: China actually ruled the United States
Oh, in
from
the 50s?
1955 to 1963.
This is a lie.
It's definitely a lie. It's
Some lies
100% a lie.
It's an alternate timeline.
What happens when you get space sickness?
But if you look at
You're not in
if you look
space
at the picture on the screen, is it a lie?
Had we lost the Second World War, this is what our lives would be.
This is what it could have been.
Hey, I played Fallout.
This is actually
Yeah, I do too.
accidental slide from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes.
Bogus.
I can't unsee it.
Excellent to each other.
I can't unsee it now that you said it.
This is a weird scene though, like where they're like just roaming through like bushes or something, and they come across two people that are
Making
getting
out.
it on, and this guy's like, "Hey, I'm trying to bone my chick. You mind?"
Again, definition of look, ma, I'm in a movie. That's the definition of look, ma, I'm in a movie. Okay.
He's
Well, I
like,
feel-
"Can I give you guys a jack trick? Tract?"
I feel like they were trying to set up the next scene of like no one believes them, right? So they're setting up all these like if you go to the next one too that you had there with the bar scene,
Yeah.
it's like get out of here, Jack. I don't know what you're talking about.
And
Oh,
and you notice what happens in this scene too, when
Mhm.
they're telling him, the bartender is like, "What are you even doing here? Get out of here. We don't serve kids here."
Right? Yeah. They're like, "What?" He's like, "What?"
And I'm like, "Wait a minute. There are bars in town that can serve kids."
Like every other place may serve kids, we don't do it.
Also,
though.
both of the kids are like 47.
Yeah.
So-
I-
Yeah.
They even have a sign in the background though. It says, "We do not serve minors."
That's
Yeah.
funny.
He's like, you may be 46, but
you're playing a
you're playing a
teenager,
kid,
you
so I'm not
get
going to
out.
serve you in this movie.
So good. We should have grown up then. We should have been there. Yeah.
What kind of booze they got on the shelves here?
You just settle yourself down.
Oh, we're just coming up to the scene where they realize what's happening.
The dog.
There he is, waiting for him.
I kept thinking I remember I hadn't seen this. We watched it again, but I hadn't seen it since in years because my dad, that's my level 4.
You know what's cool about this too? Automatic doors at this point. When he steps on that, the door opens.
Is
I
that
didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Wonder
Interesting.
when that was initially implemented.
Right.
And it probably is like a pressure plate.
Yeah. it's
Probably
like-
right. It's not a sensor.
So apparently in 58 they had those.
Wow.
in Patrick's defense? Sometimes when we go to the grocery store now, it's very.
I'm like, ooh, look.
He gets really
it
excited.
opens.
when the door opens.
It's the little things that matter, you know.
Yeah, and I'm always like, yeah, I know. You want to do it? You want to step in front of it?
Do you get in the cart too?
Yeah.
I, just, I ride on the end.
He
of
makes
it,
me
though.
use like a race car one.
While
So
she
he
pushes
rides
it.
in the. Yeah.
He's a dog.
Such a cutie.
I know.
All right, so they go.
Wait a
They go
minute, he's
into the-
opening the door there.
I guess.
No. But if you watch it, he has his hand on it. It opens.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
It
opens.
opens automatic. Okay.
I don't know if it's automatic or if he like accidentally it's left unlocked or something, and I don't
No,
know. It's
It opens.
Somebody,
it does open.
somebody
Yeah, it
look
does
up,
open on its own, but I don't
Again,
know if it was.
watch it twice.
yeah.
The
Somebody
second
look
time
up
is-
when automatic doors happen.
I noticed it the second time.
So they go into the supermarket to see what all the goings on are,
I like the dairy products.
and it's the Blob
Look at that.
Raspberry preserve.
with a
Beautiful.
name like Smuckers.
Looks like a
Gotta be good.
melted blow pop.
Looks like my left testicle.
I've seen it.
This
She's
is like,
right.
this is the scene I was talking about before, where she falls into like the Kansas Super. And she drops the
Every
dog.
girl that is afraid of something in the 50s just immediately falls
She
into
has to fall into whatever's near her.
But you have to fall into something that's going to immediately. It reminds me of, like, you ever see the show Impractical Jokers,
Oh yeah,
where they do that
with
one
the big
particular
can
joke where
or whatever's
yeah,
standing
they're
up.
in a supermarket and they knock over something that, like, you would have to run into at full force to, like be knocked over. That's what every girl back in the 50s, if they got scared
Like even the
in the least
scene,
bit,
she
They
didn't.
would launch themselves
with-
through a pile of cans.
into a haphazardly stacked pile
She
of
didn't
something.
trip into
you know?
this. She's just like, ha ha.
Yeah, she's like, oh my.
Maybe if I run into this, then somebody will come and save me.
What is it? Is it beans or something?
I don't know.
don't know.
Huh.
Probably corned beef or something.
Yeah, corned beef hash.
Yeah, it's just
That's all they ate back then.
corned beef hash,
Corned beef hash and tuna fish.
anchovies.
Ken, did you
Oh,
did you
wait.
find the answer to the automatic door? It seems like you've got some insight.
So this is actually pretty interesting. There were versions of automatic doors since like 10 AD.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
And you shut
Uh,
your
Greek
Shut
mathematician
your
and
mouth,
engineer Heron of Alexandria.
Oh, he's the guy that made like the first steam engine too.
Yep. And then they're saying that automatic doors started becoming a thing in like the 30s. And in 1954, they became commercially available with
There
a
you
matte
go.
actuator.
Hey.
That's cool.
I wonder if
So,
like
yeah.
I wonder if like supermarkets were like the first ones because you're always carrying bags of shit of stuff.
Also, Ken, do you want to be my best friend? 'Cause I feel like,
Did we just become best friends?
yup. As long as John Stamos is what your answer is going to be. I know my movies. Also, this scene is my
Yeah.
favorite.
He's
Yeah, you like
Parkour
jumps on
scene.
top.
As we watched it, all I could say is, I'm like, look at Steve McQueen was already dreamy, and now he just
very-
jumped up on top of.
very agile. Yeah.
Like that's a very grocery store stands like that are not low to the ground. Like that's a pretty high leap that he did to
Such an animal.
save her. Like I'm just saying, if
Jumped
he
up
didn't,
3 shelves.
if he did not get some that night, that she's a tease because he jumped on top, he leaped flat-footed, leaped on top of the grocery store. That's not low to the ground. He flat-foot leaped up. I didn't look at him. He's just like, this is nothing.
He earned his loving tonight.
This is
Meanwhile,
nothing.
while you're up there, could you get me some saltines?
Young man, can you hand me the chock full of nuts, please?
Vanilla wafer.
Did he like Superman flat-foot leap over?
Yeah, it's
those-
so
I
weird,
just,
right?
like,
He looks
it
like
was a very
Spider-Man or
weird
something.
scene. He just like jumped up on, like it was nothing, and then just like nobody acknowledges that it's just like that was a very high
On
leap.
top of the
It was a
saltines.
very high jump to make. Like NBA players can't make.
It's like a superhero movie scene, you know, like when they land in that
Thank
position.
you, because that scene, this scene right here, the entire movie we watched, and this just drove me nuts because I'm like, it was like,
Yeah, it's like the most unrealistic thing in the movie.
and it's right. There's a Blob. Like, this was the most. Like he just leapt.
Like I was with you guys with the ball of gelatin, but this is too much. I'm out.
He leapt 6 feet in the air.
It's the same
Landed-
special effects as Nacho Libre.
He landed like Spider-Man. Look at him. He's just like,
He glides across the ring.
look at him. I'm sorry. Just this.
In fear of that.
But Still the most ridiculous scene I've ever seen in my life.
No, Chris, you didn't miss the phone because I think the phone call comes after this scene
Does it?
to the police station. Yeah.
Yeah, because remember and they don't believe him.
So here I like this scene though when they go like try to escape from the blob. They go into the freezer.
Yeah, they do.
And they find out that the blob tries to come through under the door and it's repelled by the cold. So they set that up earlier.
But you notice here though they don't realize.
They don't realize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Till later.
Because they're not smart.
So anyway, they
and you think
blob goes away and they're like, we can't stay in here. So they try to get out of the supermarket. I'm just gonna scroll
right
through
here
it.
though. You
That guy
think
does-
that the dog is dead, but then right here they say no. We saw him running down the road, so that's
Yeah.
how we knew the dog didn't die.
Which is good. I think you'd lose the audience if the dog
Oh
died.
yeah, you'd have a lot of
Every movie you can't
angry
kill the dog.
1950s.
Yeah.
in any
theater
nowadays
goers.
you can't kill the dog.
I just wanted to say something. The guy in the striped shirt there, go back one.
My
First, he's trying to like.
and he has a unibrow.
Yeah,
He's
he's
li-
trying to like.
Is
he's
that
lim-
a young Eugene Levy?
He's very limber. He's bending backwards, but then go to the next scene now. Now he's doing another dance move here. Wait, go to the next one. There he is.
He's limbering himself up.
He's doing the.
Can we find out who that is? Is that Eugene Levy? Those eyebrows are not. Those are.
Is it? How do you see his
It's
eyebrows?
not.
Here?
No, Chris, go to the slide.
No, I think we know if that was
Okay,
Eugene
tell me
Levy.
that's not young Eugene Levy. Look at his-
14-year-old
Look at his eyebrows.
or 40-year-old.
You asked. Look at his eyebrows. Tell me that's not young Eugene Levy. See
That
what I'm
could be a
saying?
young Eugene Levy.
That's what I'm saying.
Launched his career.
It is not.
By thrusting his hips with his crazy eyebrows.
Like our new dance craze.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the phone call scene, and Jim is not having it. He's like, "You crazy kids are pulling a prank." And then they blow the horns and like everything and wake everybody up in town. This guy here,
They're
I believe-
grandparents.
this is a funny scene. This guy here, I think he ran like the local theater in this town in Pennsylvania, where a lot of the actors that the other actors in the movie came from. So he was in the movie, and I guess so he gets woken up, and he's like, do I take my fireman's hat or my air raid warden?
Well, I also noted, you see, they still had, back then you had to have the dual beds. They weren't allowed to show.
Yeah, that's funny, right? Yeah.
Like even like Ricky and, the I Love Lucy and all that, like they weren't allowed to show a married couple sleeping in the same bed.
They always had to
You had
sleep
have
in
two
separate beds.
beds.
But
Yeah.
I said this the other day. I said that wasn't actually just a movie thing. That was like
Kind of, but
until relatively recently,
no.
most
Yeah,
married
my
couples-
grandparents slept in separate beds.
My grandparents did too when they got,
She's too young.
but they were
to
like
know.
in their 90s and 80s by that point
Yeah.
in time. Like I'm just saying, I mean, people back then had like 7, 8 kids, like
mean,
minimum. Like they
Mike,
were
they would
definitely
meet
sleeping
in
in the
one
same
bed.
bed.
Mike, you were married, right? So
Yeah.
we slept in separate beds from our wives, right? Back in the day.
I mean, every now and then.
This was
Yeah,
like 5 years ago, right?
yeah, I don't know if that was
That wasn't normal to.
if it was
I'm sorry.
a choice thing
I
or
think that-
Okay, divorce
From
is different. Divorce is different than divorce is different than just choosing to sleep in separate beds.
I slept in a couple of cars. I see, a couple places,
yeah, friends.
Yeah. friends' houses,
It's normal for marriage,
sewage
right?
drains. You know what you got to do?
I sleep
Back
in a separate
alleys.
bed than my ex-husband too.
YMCA's.
Strip clubs.
If you don't watch yourself, I'll be sleeping in a separate bed than you too.
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time.
So now actually, just go back to that past slide. So now this is what I was talking about earlier, where this is kind of poignant to where, so it's 1958, a bunch of these people, like World War II had just ended. We were getting into Korea. And so this guy, he's like, it's an air raid siren.
Yeah.
I need my public safety officer helmet. Oh no, now it's a fire alarm. I need
Yep.
it. And you're like, so it's like these, you would think about it, you're like, yeah, back in, like 1943, 1944, if you heard those air raid sirens going off, and everybody was, and I guess deputized isn't really the word, but everybody was kind of like volunteer, you know, citizenry militia, and this like shows that is still a carryover from those times that we had just been through this humongously massive war, and now we're starting another one, and this is just part of life. That's why I also thought it was like funny, interesting, but also apropos of the time that a doctor who's just about to do surgery has a 12 gauge shotgun in his medical office.
Just hanging on his wall. Just hanging on his,
right. And then like a deer's on the wall, and this is doctor's office. So but it's like the same thing. It's again very, apropos of the time to show you that, culturally things were very, very different back.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I mean, that was serious as a heart attack. And you had Orson Welles doing his War of the Worlds podcast, not podcast, his radio drama, right? That freaked
War of the
people out,
Worlds,
right? It's
yeah.
War of the Worlds, because those were things people were actually worried about back then. And of course the Cold War now at this point as well was
that's
huge.
Probably also why this movie was impactful back then too, because it was a movie about something coming from space where we were trying to head towards, and there was probably this fear of like, all right, we're going to unleash something by going out there and ruffling feathers out in space or whatever, and something's gonna come back,
Definitely.
Yeah, and then when you want to extend even past that, I mean, wasn't it around this time that we were dealing with McCarthyism?
Yes. Yep.
So the Blob can be a metaphor for some type of political, troubles that were being seen as a public threat.
Yeah, a lot of these science fiction movies have kind of a vague theme of that, right? Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Thing.
Also a social commentary.
Yeah, like communism taking over people. And I've heard that theory about this, like, because the blob is red, it's supposed to it's supposed to represent like the spread of communism taking over the Western world, where
It could
people
very
were worried
well
about
be.
that.
I mean,
And then the fact that it's frozen in the Arctic at the end is like the Cold War. But,
I was like, Chris, what we talked about earlier, you leave that for me until we get to that part.
which I don't remember.
Foreshadowing of the fact that they take it to the Arctic.
But anyway, I don't know so much that I buy it here. They had. I don't think Jack Harris was thinking that deeply about this. What he was doing.
I think that there's like underlying fears that come out in stories that people are telling.
Oh yeah, sure.
Even now, like what what people are afraid of, or what you're living through. Kind of when you go out and if you write a story, you write a song, you write the songwriter's couch, right? But if you're writing something or you're creating something, it tends to be a reflection of what the times are that you're in, even if it's not purposeful that you're doing that. And maybe not the red part of it, but the like underlying like fears of things, because you're just in that environment, end up coming out in that, and those are the things that people end up relating to, which is why a movie would take off or a thing would take off, because you're speaking to all these things that are like in people's subconscious all the time.
Yeah, and I actually that's a important aspect of this movie, and I think why it's lasted so long, is that it's kind of like a slice of Americana, right? It's a snapshot of like I said, like a certain segment of the population of America in a small town at this time.
It's like a scary Norman Rockwell painting.
Just this scene in particular, yeah. You look at that.
This is another annoying Danny scene.
Looks like, what's the guy with the mustache?
Every Danny scene is annoying.
What's that guy? Looks almost exactly like him.
Oh,
Mustache.
Oh, John Waters?
Yes, John Waters.
John Waters.
Does he look like him?
He does look like him a little bit, yeah.
Just in this, though, I think. Calm down, woman.
Also, every woman in this
Where's
movie,
Divine?
her face, she's like, "What? My child is missing." What?
Yeah, but he
none of them.
he shakes her, and then he's like, "I'm gonna figure this out," and then runs off, but doesn't ever figure it out.
They
No,
just
he does. He finds
There's
Danny.
those weird pajamas.
Oh, Danny. Danny.
Yeah, they're not worried at all about their daughter in this.
No, they
part.
are. He's asking they're saying where's Jane?
I
And
don't know.
yeah, he says I don't know.
And he's like, I don't know. All I have is this weird doll.
I think she's gone.
I'm guarding you.
Freaking Danny.
And then his father's God.
He's a disappointment, is what he is. He's a disappointment to his entire family.
You should be seen, not heard.
Exactly. Especially Danny.
Oh, this is a great scene too, and when they call, and then
I know it's like watermelons, 4 cents.
But do you see the guy without a shirt in the background though too? The balding guy with like just his, I don't know what the pants are he's wearing, but he's completely shirtless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
the
what?
shirtless guy.
It almost looks like he has.
He's there the whole
Yeah, the
time.
shirtless guy.
I don't know what they're
The
called.
rest of the movie, he's just like almost every scene until the end of the movie.
Look, Mom, in a movie.
Yeah.
That's the definition of look, Mom, in a movie.
They're very comfortable fitting pants, though.
But anyway, this is where he's warning the town about, the blob. And finally the cops show up with the fire department and everything.
Wish we had better costumes.
And look, they were selling oleo back then. That's that stuff that used to make you leak.
Oh.
Remember they had those Wow chips back in the day that was made by Doritos, and they were using oleo.
Is that why Pat's always so leaky?
Yeah, you just leave a snail trail everywhere you go, man. It's horrible.
Maybe that's what the blob represents.
That's possible.
You have to slip a wet tap. That's a hard job.
I love this fire truck too, by the way.
That's awesome.
That's yeah.
And if you see in the movie, like when the lights are going on it, like you see those like spin lights.
Yeah, let's say it has the spinning 3 lights on it, right?
Yeah,
Well, if you look, California Jumbo Cantaloupes 3 for 89 cents.
Oh, I got to go to the supermarket.
Cantaloupes for less.
10, what does that say? 10 potatoes for 29 cents?
Hey.
Yeah.
That's great.
12 something tissues for 99 cents.
What the hell? You gotta.
Speaking
you gotta
about
go back in
supermarkets,
time.
Is that a 12 pack of tissues for 99 cents?
do you
More than
guys
likely.
remember? One of my earliest memories is the commercial from ShopRite where they had the can dancers.
Now,
you guys remember?
ShopRite does
got
the
the-
can selling lots of brands of everything as cans. Yeah, I remember that very much.
Such a random memory, but I remember watching that on my old TV from the late 70s.
Also, what's funny about this scene too, right, is he only called like a few people, right? And a few people called like the police or whatever.
No,
they did the air siren. But how did everyone know to go to the supermarket, first of all? But secondly, why there's like people in like hats? Why did they put their hat on?
So I can give you this because again, I grew up in a small town.
They put their hats
in
on
a
before
small
they
town, so
go
I will
out at
listen,
3 o'clock in the morning.
I will tell you this. So in the town I grew up in, tiny town like this, right? And even this is years after this,
They're like,
right?
is there a sale on cantaloupes?
No, listen, years after this, right? So if something happened and the fire alarm went off at the fire station, everybody in town, even if you lived outside of town, you could hear that fire alarm. And it became this thing like back then because you didn't know if it was like a big fire and there wasn't, it was a volunteer fire station, it was whatever. And so there are volunteer firefighters that came from everywhere too. And they would all come into it. So we were all very aware because it was so loud that like I'm far enough, my parents' house, we were far enough away from the fire station, but if that went off in the middle of the night, you were waking up.
Was it like one of those air raid sirens?
Yeah, so it was like
We used to have one of those up here too. Yeah, we still do.
super loud.
I just
and it would
don't
go
hear
off,
it
and
often.
you it was a small enough town that even if you were on the outskirts of town, you heard it, and it was like, what do you do? Because it did sound like that. It was like an air raid siren. Like, is it is there
Is it a tornado or
like, so everybody woke up and was very aware. And I hate to say it, but even when I was younger, the men of the households likely would have gone to check out what was happening.
So you got to put your hat on.
They probably would have put their hats on to be proper.
But why would you, as a whole town, run to where the source of the danger
Well,
is?
let's be honest. The majority of the people in the front are all.
I guess you want to help.
They're all men, and then their wives behind them in their bathrobes that followed the husbands. But the majority of it were the men that went to. Yeah. That was normal back then. It was normal.
All right, fair enough.
The women were on hand to make them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as they battled Blob.
It was a supermarket.
If the women all ran out too, then who was going to make the sandwiches?
You got to put your suit on, and then go out to check out what the
these cops that were so intelligent.
Like you couldn't even got
these male cops that were so intelligent.
Fireman outfits.
They were,
It was a white fireman's outfit. I've never seen that ever.
These are from
That's not a real fireman. That's like he's a guy pretending to be a fireman.
Yeah.
What's funny too? Like there's a scene where when the cops finally believe Steve here, and they ask the fireman, "Do you have any guns?" He's like, "Yeah, we got some."
Yeah. I thought that was great. Where he was like, "You got any guns?" "Yeah, I got 2. Yeah, go get them."
Yeah.
Like, you got fire extinguishers? I got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have any fire extinguishers.
The fire department, he's got one fire extinguisher.
It's funny too how it's like the cop is telling him, go home and get your guns and bring them to a large crowd of people.
Yeah.
Logical thing to do.
Yeah.
So this is a famous scene from the movie too. When this is the midnight movie, right?
So Chris, I'm sorry, Ken.
Yeah.
I thought it was the scene before. This is the scene actually. Your favorite scene with the laughing. Very meta. People laughing at people laughing on a screen in a movie. In a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the Blob.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. She's laughing hilariously, and he's like, "I just want to read this goddamn."
Yeah, this is the guy that puts his faults onto other people. The projectionist.
What do you think he's reading?
The project.
Sorry, that's a Mystery Science Theater 3000 joke. I can't take credit for
that. I just caught on. That was awesome.
This is the scene my dad said was terrifying, because as you were sitting in the theater back then watching this, and you saw this scene where it like comes through and then you're like thinking, "Oh, is this real? Is it gonna like?" He goes,
Yeah, but can I say something? I distinctly remember, maybe this is the newer version of the Blob, where the Blob like comes, like you see it in the movie, if that makes sense, like in
like through the screen.
Yeah, like it shows like it.
Yeah, I think that's the new. There was two sequel. Well, there was a sequel and a remake. There was a sequel to this movie that Jack Harris put out in the 70s called Beware the Blob or something?
Beware the Blob! !
Which is more of a comedy. And then in 1988, they did a remake of the Blob that is a lot more special effects heavy and gruesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the 88 version, I think in that one, there's a scene where the Blob like comes through the movie screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was like dripping. It looked like it was dripping.
Yeah. I think
oozing
that's
from the top of the
I think that's
screen.
The one where
I kept expecting that to be.
It was like a lighter pink colored Blob too. They changed the color up for that movie too.
But in this one, the Blob comes through like the heat grating or something, and this guy is reading his book and not paying attention, and the Blob eats him up. And the real unspools or whatever, and then the Blob squeezes through the projection booth. And we'll see the people running out of the theater in a second, which is like a classic scene that, like I said, they reenact in that town in Pennsylvania every year and during Blob Fest. But here they're checking out the supermarket to see if anything is in there, and the cop comes out and he's like, "There's nothing in there."
No, but you know what's funny? Because they were about to shine a light in there, right? And then they're like, because the cop Dave had asked the fire department, "Hey, can you shine your light in there, so we can see in there?" And this doofus walks out, or turns on the light or whatever, and then walks out. I'm like, hey, someone in there? Like they were about to just start shooting the place. Like, I think Allie's getting some space sickness.
It's all that
Right.
low G environment, you know.
Right.
So this is the scene where everybody runs out, and a lot of these people were locals from the town, and I think Jack Harris is one of the people in this scene too.
This is the one we were talking about, where when the blob comes out, it looks like you can see the fingerprints.
That one?
It looks like something else. Oh, but there's like I think
Grandma?
it looks more like grandpa. It looks more like grandpa.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think when it was a solid thing at some point, like there was a close up, and the way the light was hitting it, it's like you could see the palm of the person, whoever was like shaping the way that
Like
it looked
from
like
behind it.
their palm
Well, I
print.
feel like this is definitely a miniature. That was definitely like miniature.
This is I think this is a miniature. This has actually, you can see it looks like a photo. Do you see that this is a cutout photo?
Yep, 100%. It looks like it's just,
and it's just the blob is squeezing through from the back.
it looks like 2 bags of beaten meat. It was not actually meant to be. I just mean, like you took ground beef and just beat it. Like I meant. Sorry.
Right, we're getting to the end here. So they everybody runs out of the theater, and for some reason Danny is not at home anymore. He's outside with like his
Trying to shoot
cowboy gun, and the blob is coming towards the diner, and he runs into the diner, and Jane runs after him.
And then she presented him with the Darwin Award.
Yeah. And then if you notice too in this scene, do you guys see that the background is actually a picture?
Oh, it so is.
Yeah. And the blob is just, the silicone, they lied it on top of the picture, and then they just tilted the table to make it like, move over the
That's funny.
diner. Yeah.
I love Stephen Queen's right there. That.
So here that the blob covers the diner, and they're stuck inside, and the police are like, why don't maybe we can electrocute the blob or something, right? So they're going to try that, and they call up the diner because the blob is completely surrounding the diner, and they tell them to get into the basement because they're going to try to cut an electric line and electrocute the blob. Here it is squeezing through one of the nooks in the diner.
Yeah, they're gonna shoot I guess conductor. I don't know what.
He says a high tension line.
Yeah, he shoots it down and it'll land on.
And here we can see all the delicious ice cream flavors that they serve at the
Bing cherry vanilla sounds good.
With a butter pecan.
Funny thing about me that you might not know, butter pecan is my favorite flavor of ice cream.
Is it?
Yeah.
Nice. It's a good ice cream.
Fun facts.
So they go down. They go down to the diner. Their friends arrive. This is obviously a painting or a picture that drawn. A drawing.
So I think that's real.
No. I'm gonna correct you, Chris.
Okay. All right.
Real life scene.
Yep.
Okay.
They filmed it. 100% real.
100%.
All right. I stand
They
corrected.
had him actually. Jim shot it down.
In fact, when you see him shoot the
Live.
thing and you see
See him?
the electricity, you can't tell me that's not real.
That's right. Sharpshooter.
Do you have a slide of the electricity?
Yeah, I do. That's coming up.
This
So
is
here,
in Socrates, New York.
No.
Jim shoots the tension line, and here I have one of the shots of the electricity.
It's just like Hellraiser.
Yeah, just like Hellraiser. Yeah,
Yeah.
They must have used the same type of effect.
Mm-hmm.
What was the effect? Do you know?
I think it's they call it rotoscoping.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
They add a layer or something. I don't.
It's like I think it's like drawn on, or
Could we really question it that much? Can we just?
Yeah, I mean, it looks so real that
It's so realistic. Let's just.
rotoscoping is how they did the original Lord of the Rings movies. They put people in really, really horrible costumes and filmed it, and then just drew over the film.
Okay.
Who's the name? Bashki, right? Was that the name of the guy?
Bakshi, Ralph Bakshi.
Yeah, Ralph Bakshi. Yeah.
Fritz the cat.
Yeah, I was always under the impression that that was a Rankin Bass, production because they
The
did the what they do. They did The Hobbit and they did Return of the King,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I
there
always
was.
thought it wasn't. I didn't find out till recently it wasn't Rankin Bass.
I think didn't they do one of them? Because I know that because they had the ones that were actually animated, and
Yeah.
then they had the ones that were rotoscope animated.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
And I think they were done by different groups,
Mhm.
but I don't know that for certain.
Yeah.
Do you think
So-
she hated that little kid?
He should be in bed.
No, but do you think
Yeah.
like he's hugging her and she's just like, God, this child actor is just like,
Oh, she's like pinching the back of his neck really hard
just
right
like-
now.
you better hit your
artery.
freaking, you better hit your freaking mouth.
Yeah. She's like, you can't cry on command. Oh, I'll help you.
Please.
Method acting.
That has to be one of the most hated kids in all of these kind of movies.
It's
Why,
so
why don't
funny
you take a
that that's in
teaspoon
the
of this purple flavoring
Yeah.
liquid?
It's yummy.
book. Why did this taste like Fabuloso?
These
Only-
fake-
only my-
Tequila.
Only my
he's getting to the end of it.
my food worker friends know what Fabuloso is.
I know what fabulous.
We
I
all
know,
know what
Mike.
Fabuloso is. Anybody
Smells
over the
delicious.
age of 30 knows what Fabuloso is.
It's a good juice.
No, Folex. Shout out to
Folex.
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 If you don't know what it is,
I
buy
don't.
it. If you have carpets in your home whatsoever, buy Folex.
I have hardwood.
All right, let's focus, guys. I want to get through the movie. So that it doesn't work, the electricity, obviously, and they're all like commiserating, and everyone's freaking out because they think the little kid and everyone's gonna die. The blob is coming through the stairs and through the window here, and from electrocuting the blob, the restaurant ends up becoming on fire, right? So that everyone thinks they're gonna either burn to death or get eaten by the blob.
And then there's someone outside that mentions, "Oh, don't worry, the fire won't last long. There's not a lot of oxygen in there."
Yeah, that was the firefighter.
Yeah.
I think he says
Yeah,
back
he
over
didn't try
here.
and put it out. or anything.
That's what
No,
that's
they
what
just let it go.
Well, no, but he says I think Dave asked him, and he's like, "Do you have any ideas on how to put it out?"
Yeah.
Because I guess the blob is like completely, engulfing the.
He's like, no, I'm just a firefighter. I don't know.
Yeah, how the
Can we just at least note that at least little Billy Joel, whatever his name is, but at least he finally falls asleep
Oh,
on that
Billy
guy's
Joel.
shoulder.
He does immediately falls asleep.
And don't we kind of hope he dies?
That's how I. That's why I hope I die though. Is on falling
He's-
asleep.
He's
Between
not
shoulder.
asleep. It was cardiac arrest.
we kind of hope that's the end we hear of him.
Right, so this is the scene where they figure out that the CO2 fire extinguishers are, freezing the blob is gonna maybe.
I want to ask one thing though.
Yeah.
In the scene, right?
Yeah.
Because he's using the thing. He says CO2,
hmm
right? But the line before that was there's not enough oxygen.
CO2 is not oxygen.
I know that.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I mean it's two oxygens, but not enough oxygen to keep the fire alive. So he's like, let's pump a bunch of CO2 into the room.
Yeah.
That'll solve it.
Yeah.
But is CO2 actually cold?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't
Well,
actually know.
CO2, so I can actually tell you.
Yeah.
I
CO2
don't think.
fire extinguishers are actually, it's cold when they're on them because in my office, I have them and Monroe Fire Extinguisher comes and does them for us, and they are CO2 ones, so they're cool ones because
When you spray them, they're cold.
they're the cold spray. Yeah.
You ever spray like a dusting can too long and it gets freezing cold?
You got to clear out your nostrils during allergy season.
He does
Yeah.
not do that. I would not.
I think it's possibly because they have to store it inside the extinguishers in liquid form.
Because
Yeah,
I
so
have
the
to have
ch-
them-
When
it
it's a liquid,
loses-
it's going to be colder.
I
Yeah.
have to have them come once a year, and they redo them and like check my extinguishers to make sure that they still have because they can.
So when the CO2 comes out, then
it's cold.
It's a gas.
It's cold, but what happens is because it's liquid, and once it hits the air, it
the
expands.
change of state or whatever, like the expansion cools it down. Yeah.
Yep.
So probably the pressure. Let's have a little science
Hey,
lesson.
let's not have a
The
science.
pressure of it is keeping it
Mhm.
hot, kind of inside of the fire
trying
extinguisher.
No, the pressure is keeping it compressed into a liquid form. All right, so it's just going to be colder because you're just trying to compress everything. I mean, it's the same thing. Like that's why dry ice is like super duper really really cold, is because they took a gaseous state of carbon dioxide and compressed it down into a solid.
Hmm.
So it's
Pressure,
very
though.
very. Yeah, so it's the pressure that does it. Dry ice is a lot of fun to play with. It's great. You put a spoon on top of it, and it makes a really loud screaming noise.
Yeah, I watched something recently that said one particle or one atom doesn't have heat because you need at least two, to generate energy because they need to be. Anyway, go on, Chris. Sorry.
I think heat is a measure.
different
Heat is a measure of energy, right?
Yeah. It's the movement between atoms, right, or whatever. I don't know.
But I guess you need to create the temperature. I don't know. I don't want to get into it.
Well, this is what I'm saying is no, because it's relevant to this, because what I'm saying is within the fire extinguisher, the reason that it comes out cold is because you're putting it into a pressurized state, which is causing it to warm up technically from a technical sense. So when it comes out,
because all those molecules are compressed so closely,
then it dissipates all its heat and becomes cold. And so, but anyway, just go on.
This is a very significant conversation about just how fire extinguishers work. So CO2 fire.
And we could be completely wrong about all of that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say I'm the utmost authority on fire extinguishers from here on out.
They are cold. CO2 ones are cold. I have them in my office. I have them changed out every year. They are cold.
They shouldn't be cold.
They are cold.
They should be burning hot.
They should be tepid.
So anyway, here Steve's spraying it with the CO2, and they left the telephone off the hook in upstairs in the restaurant, and he's calling out to Dave the CO2 extinguisher, and they hear it on the phone, and they realize that they need extinguishers. So the principal's like, I know where there's some extinguishers. And all the kids go to the
hideaway key that he grabs, but I didn't realize it was just a rock for him when he gets to school.
Yeah, he breaks the window with the rock, right?
At first I was like, is that a hideaway key that they kept at the school?
He hideaway.
Does he have a hideaway key at the school?
Under the rock?
Yeah, keep a key under the floor mat.
No, the hideaway key.
No, I know, like
that's like a little trap door.
Yeah.
But first when he grabbed it, I was like, is there a hideaway key at the school?
Back then, every key was the exact same key.
I was like,
you could have just shoved any key into a keyhole. And it would have
this is the scene, though. I said.
It's all that skeleton key shape.
You remember we went out on New Year's Eve, and then I came the next day. All of a sudden, there was 4 skeleton keys on some weird yarn string in my bag that we've never to this day figured out where.
You've been cursed.
No, but to this day, nobody knows where they came from.
Nobody.
Just 4 skeleton keys attached.
It's pretty cool.
That showed up in my bag one day.
Except for this guy.
He knows.
He's like, I got my extinguisher.
He's like, look how I clasp the bottom.
Gently cradle it. So the principal breaks the window, and they get the extinguishers, and the fire. It's so weird. The fire department's like, we only have a couple of them.
We only have one, but the school has 20.
Extinguishers.
It's like half full. I mean,
what would we do with extinguishers?
But again, can we note that they had?
Look at this guy.
They have as many fire extinguishers as they did guns. The fire department.
That's actually Beyonce.
It's the world's oldest firefighter. God.
That's a double nozzle fire extinguisher he had.
Huh.
You're a double nozzle fire extinguisher.
Or is that two? That must
No,
be
it's 2 people.
It's 2 guys, yeah.
And here they're calling up the government and being like, you guys got to send a plane to take this thing out of the out into the Arctic or
We
something.
need ice bombs.
Get away.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we're not sending anyone. Just get a bunch of teenagers in t-shirts. Grab fire extinguishers.
So this is all I have to
Get it
say.
under control.
This is all I have to say for the rest of the podcast. Ready? Remember what I told you earlier when we talked. So I love it in this movie as we watched it, and they say at the end they're bringing the government in to take this big thing to the Arctic because it'll be cold and everything else, and they're like, I hope it never thaws. And I was like,
Oh yes, yeah.
They didn't know global warming was going to be a thing, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's funny that you mentioned that.
blob is probably still there, and it's defrosting as we speak.
Yeah,
and
its
we're all
forehead is
doomed.
showing.
We are all doomed.
It's funny that you say that too, because there's a line that Steve McQueen says in this movie too, that is kind of like it's apropos to what you're saying. He says,
Prescient.
I think
how,
that's why I said it. That's why he
he
says,
says,
like,
how do you get people to protect themselves from something they don't believe in? Right, when they're going around town.
but this is like a 1950s like PSA for global warming. The entire thing.
I
is
think they were
that.
just setting it up for a
No,
sequel.
the entire thing is just that. It's like
I'm
look at
pretty sure the emissions on those cars weren't regulated.
No, yeah, they didn't have. Did they have is that what does it? The carburetor.
Catalytic converters.
Catalytic
I don't think
converter,
they-
yeah.
I don't think they
I don't
had
think
them
they had
then.
them.
Not
that
back
just
then. Yeah.
spewed pure.
People don't
you
have
know,
them now either because everyone
But in
steals them.
fact, fun fact now, if you don't have a catalytic converter, you can still pass an inspection. You
It's
don't
true.
actually need it because most cars now are made to be EPA efficient without having to
It
have
does make them a lot louder, though.
It does, yes. But you can pass an inspection without a catalytic converter.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Fun fact.
I love this
And-
scene too because of all the different cars that they have in the
Yeah.
in the shot.
Why
I say
could be
something?
grease lightning?
Yeah.
I've been watching like restoration videos of old things like Tonka trucks and stuff. There's like YouTube channels on this.
He has, I can
And
attest.
but all the stuff from that age when they powder coat it and then heat up the powder coating or whatever, it all looks like that. Those bright colors. I think that needs to make a comeback.
Yeah.
There's
I think you would need lead paint and asbestos and
No,
things
no,
like that.
like
for-
powder coating stuff does that.
I know,
yeah.
but I still
Gives it like a luminescent sheen.
I've always wished that like back in the day, my those little cars, what are they called?
Hot Wheels?
Yeah, like Hot Wheels or whatever.
Matchbox.
They had those ones
Matchbox,
where you
yeah.
hit water on it, it changes color.
I remember
Why are
those,
there-
yeah.
Why are there no cars out there that do that in the rain?
There are.
Are there?
They do. They have those. They have paint jobs like that. I've seen a couple of them where they
Paint
take them and they throw like boiling water on it, and the whole paint changes.
Huh.
So like when you hit the sun
But I-
the right way to it, like it'll
Yeah, I'd
change
like
the
it
color that you
to
see.
happen, I guess.
Well,
in
I've
the-
seen those where they're like color changing as to the angle that you're looking at them. They have like that kind of mirror sheen to them.
We
Yep.
gotta-
But we
yeah,
are
this-
coming on the end.
We are
end of
coming on the
this,
end. We got to get to the
this
end.
movie here, guys. But
So now, and then one thing, that I kind of realized and I thought of when I was watching this end, and they were talking about how they were going to, get your biggest airplane over here and dump this thing in the Arctic. So we know how influential this movie was, and the first thing I thought of was that's the premise of the thing.
Yeah, we were saying that there's a lot of references to the thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
That now you got this frozen alien up in the Arctic somewhere, and some idiots, in some science station happen to unearth it.
Yeah,
I was
totally.
like, oh,
Yeah.
well, so maybe that was the ending of the movie, was not to make a question mark as like a sequel, but people took that as like, oh, let me take this and make a brand new movie off of it.
It was
Whatever.
definitely open to expand upon.
And this is the smoking area in the restaurant.
Right. It was the
This is the Bel Air Diner, 1995.
craft services
Down
on the movie set.
section.
Right. There's like prosciutto, cheese, a couple of cigarettes,
Can you believe that we used to
a couple of
sit
Pall Mall.
the smoking area and the air looked like that?
My apartment's air looked like that.
Yeah. People smoking on
Church
airplanes.
and airplanes.
I said
look
my
like
Yeah.
mother used to take us to McDonald's and she'd sit in the smoking section, and it was like that.
like,
or
why do
she'd be
these
like,
non-smoking
or
people want to
here
want to
you.
ban
Yeah, they had those
smoking?
aluminum ashtrays too
Uh-huh.
at McDonald's,
Matter
right?
with
But she'd
Yeah.
say, "You kids sit in the non-smoking section," which was
That's
one booth over
Yeah.
from the smoking.
Definitely
So
shady.
she'd sit in the booth next to us, and we'd be in the
Shady from it.
non-smoking, even though she was. It's just all. Yeah, we're all lucky we're alive.
Yeah.
All right, so they're freezing the blob. And this is where, Ken, I think you were referring to this, where they're saying bring the biggest airplane you have, right?
Yeah. No, that's
And-
exactly right.
And then they freeze the blob so it comes off of the diner and everyone's able to escape. Unfortunately, Danny survives.
I hate to see it. I hate to see it.
You really do.
Yeah,
Right, everyone.
Danny.
And this is the scene of the blob that's frozen. Yeah, Danny. And then here we go. Here's the end. So that they this is a stock footage, I think, of an actual military airdrop.
Mhm.
But they also give you like the question mark at the end. And
Yeah,
says,
yeah, there you go.
it's funny. It's funny nowadays though, because like they said, they put it in the Arctic, like hoping it never. And they're like, let's hope it never.
Hell, yeah, let's hope it never defrosts or whatever.
They say, but
Or as long as the Arctic stays cold, I think that's what he says, right?
I remember
And-
we were watching it again last night, and I was like, yeah, if it little did they know global warming.
Yeah,
is
well,
gonna
Al
hit.
Gore pops his head in at the
So
end.
Alan
Yeah.
said the blob,
like, "Hey,
blob
guys."
is likely defrosted at this point.
Well, we wouldn't have any of this without him because he
and
created the internet.
probably coming back.
Who Al Gore did?
Al Gore, yeah.
He invented the
He invented the intranet,
intraweb,
the interwebs.
the interwebs, and the YouTubes.
So let's say this. I think I'd like to see the updated version of this movie. So what would be the
No,
next?
It's Kevin Dillon is the remake of the blob.
Is it in the 80s or is
The
it?
next one after this is the 70s.
Right,
Yeah,
but-
I think
It's
72. And
Beware
then
the Blob.
But
then
they
in 80
remade the
I
blob
think
though
88,
88
was
yeah,
remade.
88.
in '88, and it was Kevin Dillon though.
Yeah.
I actually like the 88 version.
I do
it-
too.
I did too, because
Yeah.
it's very 80s and Kevin Dillon.
It is, yeah.
It is
And the
very
special-
80s and
The
very
special
Kevin
effects are a lot more gruesome too.
Yeah, you got like a
80
screaming
version.
skull that you can see within the blob with light
Don't-
from behind. So
Mhm.
Well, not great, but
not great, but you know,
but compared to this, like it's,
an improvement.
sometimes like remakes, they make remakes and they're not great. But that I think is a good remake. It was a good remake.
All right, so last thoughts before we finish up.
Well, that was my last thought. Was that
Global warming is real.
that
so.
that maybe not necessarily next year,
Mhm.
sometime soon we come back on and
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never having us on again. We just took up like hours of your time.
Yeah,
Hours
this
and
is
hours.
like
This is
what
the
was it, like
norm.
4 hours long.
Is your hard drive smoking over there?
I think all our hard drives are smoking.
So
right
yeah,
now.
so speaking of timing, I should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
But I want to let you guys again pimp anything that you want to pimp. So let's go down the line, and if there's anything you want to promote, go ahead.
Oh, us?
We'll start with you, and then I'll let Ken promote again, whatever. he
Obviously, the
wants to.
songwriter's
I'm
couch.
I'm Whiting it right now.
I'm gonna have hopefully Chris will be on and Mike and Ken. I know you're also a bass player. I know you don't count yourself as a musician, but if you play bass and you've done it a little bit, you're definitely a musician, or you like music.
Or
You're definitely
okay,
in. So
that
we'll have you on. But the songwriter's couch. Google it.
Like
Also, I'll just say I'll put the links to all of your stuff if you send them in the chat. I'll post the links to your stuff in the description bar.
But thank you for having us on. We
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Thank you, Allie, for coming on and talking too, because really she is the horror movie expert here. It's not me. So, and she really loves film. So I felt it was very appropriate to have her on and have her talk about
apropos.
all that stuff.
Also,
That's our word of the day.
Songwriter's
Apropos.
couch.
Did I use that correctly? Apropos? That's fancy, right?
Apropos, the Songwriter's couch. Like, subscribe,
Yeah.
share.
It's like a petit four.
But we'll move on and
Yeah, go ahead, Ken. Go ahead and promote your podcast. And
All right. Well, I just wanted to say, thanks so much for having me on. This was a whole lot of fun. I actually wasn't expecting to enjoy reviewing this movie as much as I actually did. When I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this is killing me!" But it was great. It was such a fun time, and I think things like this is sometimes a lot of fun to go through just because of how much you can criticize on it and how much humor you can find in something that's actually trying to be serious in a sense. So it was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for having me. You can find me on my one of my podcasts, which is that's probably coming out backwards, but Star Trek: The Undiscovered Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I'm also restarting another podcast called MSV Podcast that will also be available on those platforms as well. And you can find me on Facebook, Ken Radner, KenRadner. And again, thank you so much for this. It was a lot of fun. I can't wait for us to do it again. I just loved it. Thank you so much, guys.
all of you guys are welcome back anytime.
Most
This was a really great time. So yeah, like I said, for the Songwriter's Couch and for Ken for your podcast, I'll put the in the description bar down below links if you want to check out their stuff. I definitely suggest that you do. We'll end it here. Is there any last things you want to say, Mike, before we end?
No, thanks to Patrick, Ali, and Ken. I appreciate
Yeah, Mike.
you.
Hopefully your finger heals quickly.
It's getting there. It's getting there. They're talking a few more months as of today, so we'll see.
Well,
I'll keep everyone posted as it goes along.
I'll let everyone out here in space know what you're doing, and thank you guys for having us on. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yes, definitely.
All right, Outpost 13 signing off. Stay spooky, everybody.
Have a good one.